Chapter 664. The figure stood with his hands behind his back, surrounded by the aura of an emperor. At first glance, he gave off a very contradictory feeling. He was clearly standing in the passage, but he also felt like he was thousands of miles away. This was a young man who looked to be in his 20s, and his body was surrounded by celestial mist. He stepped out of the azure passage and stood in front of Chu Bei. He quietly floated in the air, as if he had merged with heaven and earth. He looked like an ordinary person, but he also looked like the ruler of heaven and earth. As he swept his gaze around, an aura of someone who had been in a high position for a long time spread out, making people feel respect for him and want to kneel down and worship him. If one looked closely, they would find that there was a colorful flame dancing between his eyebrows, which was very strange. Disciple Xiao Yan greets Master. Looking at the space-time wheel, Xiao Yan immediately recognized him. He followed the aura and fixed his gaze on Chu Bei, then cupped his fists and bowed. As soon as Xiao Yan finished speaking, before Chu Bei could respond, a new figure walked out of the space-time wheel. This was a man in a long robe with exquisite facial features and a cold and handsome face. He stepped out of the space-time wheel. For a moment, his body suddenly became bright and dazzling, as if he had lost his original body, as if he was made up of countless light atoms. Disciple Chen Nan greets Master. Chen Nan was the same. He calmed his excitement and bowed respectfully to Chu Bei. Behind him, the mighty power of light seemed to have turned into a naughty child, constantly evolving into all things. There were ancient divine beasts, ancient celestial weapons, and jade pavilions. Before the disciples of the All-Heavens shop could speak, the space-time wheel rotated for the third time, and another blurry figure appeared. He held a beautiful trident in his hand, and when this blurry figure walked out of the space-time wheel, his appearance gradually became clearer. Disciple Tang San greets Master. His respectful greeting reverberated through the All-Heavens shop like rolling thunder. Disciple Yi Fan greets Master. The fourth figure walked out of the space-time wheel. His body was surrounded by the 9 heavens' thunder. Black, purple, green, and other thunderbolts were everywhere. Some of the thunderbolts even evolved into the appearance of mysterious giant beasts. He was like the ruler of lightning. Just by looking at him, one could not help but prostrate themselves in worship. Disciple Shi Hao greets Master. There was a buzzing sound, and a fifth figure walked out of the space-time wheel. As he took a step forward, white light filled the area around him. It was like a spider web that stretched out in the void, causing cracks to appear and then heal. This was the terrifying power of chaos. Disciple Lin greets Master. A sixth figure appeared, and behind him, a golden dragon could be faintly seen. It had 4 pairs of dragon horns, and behind its gigantic body, there were billions of dragons worshipping it. Disciple Luo Feng greets Teacher. Soon, the 7th figure walked out of the wheel of time and space. There was a black halo behind him, like a huge black hole with no end. There was a terrifying suction force that seemed to be able to devour everything. Master, did you use your supreme divine ability to make my disciple appear here? Where is this? Chen Nan looked at Chu Bei with confusion. Then, he pointed at the wheel of time and space, and then at Yi Fan, Tang San, and the others. What is that thing? And who are they? Chu Bei's gaze swept across Chen Nan, Xiao Yan, and the other main characters of the dimensions. There was a smile on his lips. You are all the inheritors I have chosen. After coming out of the training city, other than the increase in his cultivation, he could also summon all the contractors. Perhaps it was because the flow of time in different regions was different, but now, the contractors' cultivation had reached a level where they could fight against the warden of the large region. Master, is this the great domain of chaos? The Emperor's aura is so vigorous. Indeed, this is far from what the large region I came from can compare to. Shi Hao Yi Fan and the others sensed the energy aura that filled the air around them. They looked at each other. They guessed that this was definitely the highest level of great domain of chaos. Only in this place could the air be filled with the mortal emperor's energy fluctuations. Moreover, there was a mysterious suppression in the unseen world. Even with their strength, they were affected. Sect Master, are they all your personal disciples? 5. They are the same as Elder Sun and the others, 5 half-immortal emperors at the Great Circle of the Great Circle. Together with Lord Long Huang, the number of half-immortal emperors at the Great Circle of the Great Circle of the Great Circle of the Great Circle has already reached 11. This means that in the following battle, our great domain of chaos results will be even better. The disciples of the great domain of chaos gradually came back to their senses. When the half-immortal emperor early-stage experts revealed the cultivation levels of Chen Nan, Tang San, Yi Fan, and the others, they all released cries of alarm. At the same time, expressions of excitement appeared on their faces. Master called you all over for 2 reasons. The first is to let you all tour the great domain of chaos, and the second is to give you all some training. Chu Bei's smiling voice sounded. Hua, the moment Chu Bei's voice fell, Xiao Yan, Chen Nan, Tang San, Yi Fan, Shi Hao, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, Sand Monk, Golden Cicada, Ao Lai, Lin Li, and Luo Feng, a total of 12 figures stood side by side, their expressions respectful. The next day. It was also the day when the Emperor-level power battle of High Heavens began. During these days, because it was the battlefield of the power battle, Star Ocean Mountain was incomparably lively. And today, it reached a peak that hadn't been seen in 100,000 years. After waiting for so long, this day has finally come. Just the thought of being able to see those immortal emperors makes me extremely excited. Yes, every second feels like a year. I wonder which Emperor-level forces disciples will be able to shine this time. Needless to say, it will definitely be the Creator Emperor sect. After all, Hong Jun and Han Kun have both become emperors. This great domain of chaos shouldn't disappoint us. Even though it was only established in recent years, it is still a fierce dark horse. Other than the sect master who is above 6 stars, there are also 5 half-immortal emperors who have entered. Speaking of these 5 half-immortal emperors, they are from the West Earth region where the Genesis primordial spirit is. If the 5 of them encounter Hong Jun and Han Kun in the battlefield, that would be interesting. Speaking of which, it's really a pity for 100 Flower Valley. An emperor-level power that has stood for tens of thousands of eras has perished just like that. The huge Star Ocean Plaza was filled with densely packed figures, all of them carrying powerful auras. Those who could stay in the plaza today were at least at the 5th heaven of the Immortal King Realm. As for those below the Immortal King Realm, they were very tactful and watched the entire power battle through the projection of the great domain of chaos. At this moment, the gazes of all the great beings in the plaza were gathered on the huge round platform suspended in the center of the plaza. It was made of unknown materials. Just as the rumors say, ever since they joined hands in the great lost domain, the 3 of them have become very close. Hei Wu Immortal Emperor is here too. The 4 immortal emperors who had participated in the fight for the Source Heaven Stone Mine were also seated on the round platform. Haha, this emperor is late. A voice with a hint of laughter rang out. Then, a white-haired old man in a long robe slowly descended from the ripples with his hands behind his back. His aura was restrained and he looked like an ordinary old man, but he gave off an inexplicable sense of oppression that made people unable to resist him. This white-haired old man was the Genesis primordial spirit, who was also ranked 6th on the Immortal Emperor rankings. Brother primordial spirit, you look so radiant. 3 emperors in one state, anyone would be happy about this. It seems that your Genesis Emperor sect is destined to shine in this battle. Congratulations, congratulations. On the round platform, the immortal emperors who had a good relationship with the Genesis primordial spirit stood up one after another to congratulate him. Hong Jun and Han Kun, those 2 brats, did not disgrace me. After waiting for tens of thousands of years, this day has finally come. The Genesis primordial spirit laughed and sat down nearby. At the same time, his eyes swept around as if he was looking for someone. Look, the owner of the All Heavens shop is here. Hearing this, the Genesis primordial spirit suddenly raised his head and looked at the purple-robed man who had descended. His eyes narrowed, and there was a strange look in them. I finally see the true body of the All Heavens shop's owner. Although his aura is strong, the sense of oppression he gives me seems to be inferior to the Genesis primordial spirit. Did he really defeat the Genesis primordial spirit? You know too little about the All Heavens shop's owner. When talking about him, I can only use 4 words to describe him: bottomless. Indeed, when you think he is only a 1-star immortal emperor, he can easily suppress the 100 Flowers Empress. When you think he is a 2 stars immortal emperor, he can snatch the Source Heaven Stone Mine from the Moonlight Empress, the Barren Immortal Emperor, the Star Dome Immortal Emperor, and the Hei Wu Immortal Emperor. When you think he is a 4 stars immortal emperor, he can defeat the 6 stars Genesis primordial spirit. But in my opinion, the strength that the owner of the All Heavens shop has shown should have reached the upper limit, which should be the strength of an early 7 stars immortal emperor. When Chu Bei appeared, he instantly became the focus of the audience. Not only the experts in the square, but even the immortal emperors on the round platform also cast their gazes over. If there was one who was the most mysterious among the 39 immortal emperors, it would be the owner of the All Heavens shop, who had only appeared in 100 years. As for the other immortal emperors, they had already been famous in the chaotic heavens for hundreds of millions of years. Even if they did not know each other well, they knew about most of them. As for the owner of the All Heavens shop, they knew almost nothing. This person seemed to have appeared out of thin air, and what was more terrifying was that he was a 7 stars immortal emperor. As the figures landed, 34 of the 40 exquisite chairs on the round platform above the center of the Star Ocean Square were already seated. Of the 39 Emperor-level forces, only the top 5 are left now. The Wuji Peak is ranked 5th, the Yantian Valley is ranked 4th, the Divine Path Mountain is ranked 3rd, the Qianseng Island is ranked 2nd, and the Dragon Spring Sect is ranked 1st. They're here! They're here! It's the Wuji Immortal Emperor and the Yantian Immortal Emperor! Amidst the exclamations of countless experts, 2 more figures landed on the round platform amidst the ripples. When the 2 immortal emperors took their seats, the other immortal emperors on the round platform, including the Genesis primordial spirit, nodded at them as a greeting. Owner of the All Heavens shop, when you fought with Brother Yuan Ling 3 years ago, I was in seclusion. I really didn't expect that I would make a mistake the first time I saw you. If there's a chance, I'd like to spar with you. The Wuji Immortal Emperor looked at Chu Bei with some fighting spirit rising in his eyes. Chu Bei did not reply. The fact that the other party was ranked above the Genesis primordial spirit proved that his strength was no less than a 6 stars immortal emperor. He did not want to waste the right to use a level 22 commodity on a spar with such a guy. Why haven't the Divine Path Immortal Emperor, the Qianseng Immortal Emperor, and the Dragon Spring Immortal Emperor arrived yet? As time passed by, looking at the ripples in the sky that were no longer moving, the experts in the square were puzzled. Chapter 666. Everyone, His Majesty is in closed-door cultivation and is at a critical moment. He can't come. I'll take his place in this year's faction ranking battle. Just as the experts on the plaza frowned, 3 different voices that seemed to have been prearranged rang out in the sea of stars in unison. Then 3 figures descended side by side from the ripples. They wore different robes, representing Divine Path Mountain, Thousand Green Island, and Dragon Spring Sect respectively. Who are they? Why haven't I seen them before? Celestial Emperors. They're all Celestial Emperors. As expected, these top factions have more than one Celestial Emperor. It's just that they're all hidden. Based on what they said, the Divine Path Celestial Emperor, Thousand Green Celestial Emperor, and Dragon Spring Celestial Emperor won't be able to come. They'll be the representatives instead. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on the 3 figures that descended side by side. The limitless Celestial Emperor seemed to recognize the 3 figures and said indifferently, "It's not against the rules even if you participate in the first round as disciples. It's just a faction ranking. His Majesty has never cared about it. What he cares about is the next Celestial Emperor battle in the Chaos Universe. The celestial emperor representing the dragon spring sect glanced at the limitless celestial emperor and replied calmly. Whether it was him, or the two celestial emperors representing Divine Path Mountain or Thousand Green Island, they did not show any respect when facing the limitless celestial emperor. All of this stemmed from their strength. They were all beyond 6-star celestial emperors. If the three of them created their own emperor-grade factions, even if they were not in the top 5, they would definitely be in the top 8. After discussing the celestial emperors representing the top 3 emperor-grade factions, the experts on the plaza quickly quieted down. Now, only the celestial emperor from the Origin Sky Pavilion is left. All of them looked at the last empty chair at the same time. Since everyone is here, let this emperor explain the ranking rules of the High Heavens faction ranking battle. Suddenly, an ethereal voice sounded, and a silver-haired old man dressed in the Origin Sky Pavilion's robes appeared. As he spoke, he had already walked to the edge of the round platform and swept his gaze across all the experts on the plaza. His calm voice filled every corner of the plaza. It's really him! Immortal Emperor Lan Hui! It's not hard to guess. As the Pavilion Master of the High Heavens Pavilion branch, it's only natural that he would be the first choice for the host. It's said that 100,000 years ago, when he was first transferred to the High Heavens, he fought against the divine Tao Immortal Emperor. I know that as well. However, that battle didn't seem to have ended. No matter what, it's certain that Lan Hui Celestial Emperor is no weaker than the limitless Celestial Emperor. Some of the experts on the plaza exclaimed when they recognized the silver-haired elder from the Genesis Sky Pavilion. Everyone, this isn't the first time the War of Powers has been held in the High Heavens. I'm sure everyone has some understanding of this rule. It's no different from before. When evaluating the overall strength of a force, other than the founder, of course, the strength of the disciples is also important. Because of this, the Emperor-ranked faction battle is split into 2 rounds. The first round was a competition between the disciples of the various Emperor-level forces. The second round was a competition between the founders. In the end, the Genesis Sky Pavilion will combine the two to give the fairest ranking. The silver-haired elder paused for a moment before he continued. In the first round, any disciple of an Emperor-level force can participate, and there's no need to worry about casualties. This is because every world battlefield we create is supported by Lord Genesis Emperor's power. As long as someone receives a fatal blow, the restriction created by Lord Genesis Emperor will be activated, and that person will be immediately sent out of the world battlefield. Of course, these people will only have an additional opportunity to interact with quasi-emperor-level immortal emperors. According to the number of participants, we've created 10,000 world battlefields. Everyone's original points are 1. Whenever one person eliminates another, they will obtain all of the other person's points. Finally, we'll arrange the person with the highest points in the 10,000 world battlefields into the same world battlefield. After that, we'll select the top 200 people with the highest points. When that time comes, it will be a sparring match between the 200 powerhouses until the ranking between them is decided. Of course, the Genesis Sky Pavilion's evaluation of different rankings will be different. As for how the participating disciples will be divided into the 10,000 world battlefields, for the sake of fairness, Lord Genesis Emperor's restrictions will be rationally distributed according to their cultivation base. There won't be a situation where a perfect stage quasi-emperor level immortal emperor will encounter an immortal emperor in the same world battlefield from the start. The silver-haired elder from the Genesis Sky Pavilion explained the rules of the emperor-level faction battle. However, since the experts on the plaza were already aware of the rules, there was no surprise on their faces. Instead, they anxiously and helplessly followed the procedure. Next, let's invite Lord Genesis Emperor's energy projection to open the 10,000 world battlefields. As the silver-haired elder's voice faded, all the experts on the plaza looked in the direction the silver-haired elder was pointing at. Their faces were filled with excitement and anticipation. In the next instant, as countless experts waited anxiously, a loud boom sounded in the direction the silver-haired elder was pointing at, and a huge circular opening appeared. Amidst the buzzing sounds, all kinds of strange phenomena appeared in the gap, and a dazzling golden path extended out. Almost at the same time, the sound of the great Tao resounded, and a figure slowly walked out. This was a middle-aged man in a simple green robe. The moment he arrived, all the Emperor energy fluctuations on the round platform seemed to be imprisoned in an instant, and the huge square fell into silence. The middle-aged man had his hands behind his back as his indifferent gaze swept across the immortal emperors on the round platform, and the experts on the plaza expressionlessly. Genesis Emperor! Is that his true body? How is that possible? It must be a clone. It's just a clone. Just by standing there, it gives off such a terrifying pressure. Yes, I'm afraid that even this clone is stronger than the Genesis Immortal Emperor and the Limitless Immortal Emperor. No matter what, he's the first on the Immortal Emperor ranking in the entire Chaos universe. On the plaza, the experts' gazes were fixed on the green-robed man. After recovering from their shock, they exclaimed one after another with admiration in their eyes. The Genesis Primordial Spirit, Limitless Immortal Emperor, and the other Immortal Emperors also looked at the clone with respect. Rumble! Genesis Emperor's clone ignored the reverent gazes of the experts around him, and waved his hand. Suddenly, countless mysterious colorful energy openings appeared in the sky. His divine consciousness detected that there were exactly 10,000 openings, and they led to the world battlefield on the other side. Chapter 667. Let's begin. Just as the Origin Emperor's clone uttered these 3 words, countless figures in the 39 Emperor provinces above the high heavens turned into specks of light and entered the 10,000 realm battlefields. And these specks of light were the disciples of the Emperor-level forces that had registered to participate in the Battle of Forces. Battlefield number 3. Xiaoyan sized up the surroundings. This so-called realm battlefield was actually a vast galaxy. However, there was a strange and mysterious energy fluctuation in this galaxy. It seemed to be untraceable, yet it was everywhere. It was as if it was monitoring every single one of them. In this vast galaxy, aside from the galaxies and stars, there were also countless chaotic mountains and surging galaxies that flowed with the power of time. Suddenly, a warm current flowed through Xiaoyan's palm, and a faint light slowly appeared in his palm. There were a few words imprinted in the light. Participant, Xiaoyan Emperor Province, All Heavens Shop, Emperor Province Faction, All Heavens Shop Points, 1 ranking, Non-Realm Battlefield, number 00003. Fellow Cultivator, you are truly unfortunate. You are the first person I have encountered. However, may I know which faction you belong to? Tell me the name of your faction. If our factions are close, perhaps I will let you go. Right at this moment, a figure in gray robes stepped on the galaxy and instantly appeared in front of Xiaoyan. This was a 9th Heaven Celestial King. If it were not for the suppression of the strange and mysterious power in this realm battlefield, just the energy fluctuation that he released would be able to disperse the surging galaxies beneath his feet. Xiaoyan glanced at the person in front of him calmly. Without saying anything, he directly struck out with his palm. In the next instant, the gray-robed man's body was restrained. It was also when he sensed the might of Xiaoyan's palm that the gray-robed man's eyes suddenly narrowed, and a feeling of fear rose up in him. However, just as Xiaoyan's palm was about to land on the gray-robed man, the strange energy that was everywhere in this realm battlefield suddenly wrapped around the gray-robed man, blocking Xiaoyan's palm for him. Then, accompanied by an explosion, the gray-robed man was wrapped by the strange energy and disappeared. At this moment, Xiaoyan felt the warmth in his palm again. He saw that his points had changed from 1 to 2. At the same time, Chen Nan, Tang San, Yi Fan, Shihao, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, Sand Monk, Golden Cicada, and Ao Lai were in a similar scene. There were experts who targeted them, and then they were immediately blasted out of the world battlefield. As for Linley, Luo Feng, and Jun Mo Xie, they were much more careful. The moment they entered the battlefield, they retracted their auras. Especially Jun Mo Xie, he hid within a chaotic mountain and secretly watched the other great beings battle. World Battlefield 2021. A white-robed man hovered above a star field. He was handsome, but his face was expressionless. His entire being was like an iceberg. He placed his hands behind his back and swept his cold gaze across the surroundings. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand in a certain direction. Wherever his palm passed, immortal Emperor aura filled the air. When the incomparably huge palm was retracted, there were hundreds of imprisoned figures in the palm. Hongjun! Damn it, why am I on the same battlefield as this guy? Yeah, he's already stepped into the immortal Emperor realm. When the 100 figures in the huge palms saw the white-robed man's appearance, and recognized his identity, their faces all became ugly, but they also felt extremely helpless. Pun pun pun! A series of muffled explosions rang out. Those 100 figures were wrapped up by that mysterious energy, and sent out of the world battlefield at the same time. Looking at Hongjun's points, it instantly went from 1 to 116. World Battlefield 1949. Han Kun was currently playing out a scene similar to Hongjun. Every time he descended on a star field, he would raise his hand and suppress the great beings in that star field, sending them out of the world battlefield. In just a few breaths of time, Han Kun's points already exceeded 500. At this moment, in the 10,000 world battlefields, the scene of the big fish eating the small fish and the small fish eating shrimps was playing out. Star Ocean Mountain, Star Ocean Plaza. The eyes of the great beings were constantly switching between the various world battlefields. But even so, they still couldn't see everything. It was because there were just too many world battlefields, a total of 10,000. Gradually, these spectating great beings began to selectively watch. The battlefields that attracted the most attention were those with immortal emperors or perfected quasi-immortal emperors. Look at the battlefields of 2021 and 1949. As expected of the great beings who have already stepped into the immortal emperor realm. As soon as the two of them appeared, they left the others far behind. Of course, Hongjun and Han Kun are now immortal emperors. As long as they want, they can create a new emperor-level force. There's no need to think about it. The ones who will be eliminated from these two battlefields will definitely be them. In my opinion, Hongjun and Han Kun will definitely occupy the top 2 spots in this battle between the disciples. Looking at the powerful means displayed by Hongjun and Han Kun in the 2 major battlefields, the spectating great beings discussed loudly. Brother Primordial Spirit, the performance of your 2 disciples is very eye-catching. The limitless immortal emperor looked at the Genesis Primordial Spirit and said, Your disciples aren't bad either. After the Genesis Primordial Spirit responded to the limitless immortal emperor, he subconsciously glanced at Chu Bei with a smug look in his eyes as though he was showing off. On the round stage of the Star Ocean Plaza, a total of 40 immortal emperors, including immortal Emperor Lan Hui of the Origin Sky Pavilion, sat upright on exquisite chairs and chatted happily. Not only the immortal emperors, but all the cultivators on the plaza and even the entire high heavens were watching the 10,000 world battlefields projected in the sky above their heads. Buzz. However, just as these cultivators were engrossed in their reading, a line of identical crimson text appeared in every corner of the high heavens. Among them, the blood-red words above the Star Ocean Plaza were the most eye-catching. Traces of the Slaughter Clan have been found in the Emperor Fallen Sea. Immortal Emperors will immediately head over to eliminate them. Participants will receive 10 drops of Source Heaven power. This font and color, it's the decree of the Zero faction. Looking at the blood-red words that suddenly appeared in the sky, all the cultivators in the high heavens shifted their gaze from the world battlefields to the sky. When they recognized the meaning behind the line of words, their expressions changed abruptly. In the entire Chaos Heavens, in addition to the forces on the overall Emperor ranking, there were also some transcendent forces. The strength of these transcendent forces, who their members were, and where they were located were all a mystery. But there was no doubt that they were very powerful, and from some of their performances, most of them were not inferior to the top 5 forces on the overall Emperor ranking. The so-called Zero faction was not the name of a transcendent force, but just a designation. What the cultivators of the various large domains in the Chaos Heavens knew was that the overseers of the large domains in the Chaos Heavens all belonged to this organization. Chapter 668. The person who will receive the order this time is an immortal Emperor powerhouse. As far as I know, this is the first time the Zero faction has issued an order to an immortal Emperor powerhouse. Who knows? Maybe it happened millions of years ago, but we didn't know about it. What do you think will happen to an immortal Emperor powerhouse if they refuse the Zero faction's order? Will it be the same as the perfected stage immortal Emperor who disobeyed the order a million years ago? Killed on the spot? How is that possible? This mission has a reward. For an immortal Emperor powerhouse, it's obviously a two-way choice, not an order. Some cultivators seemed to realize that the Zero faction's order this time was different from before, and they exclaimed one after another. Didn't you pay attention to the content of the order? The Sure clan still has the Emperor fallen. See. A quasi-immortal emperor on the square heard the people around him gradually deviate from the topic and said loudly, causing everyone's attention to return to the mission itself. The Emperor Fallen Sea was one of the most dangerous places in the high heavens. To be precise, the dangerous place here referred to the small world in the Emperor Fallen Sea that had existed for countless eras and was opened by someone. There were rumors that the dangerous place in the Emperor Fallen Sea was a great lost domain. There were also rumors that it was the old nest of a supreme immortal emperor who had died. Its origin was unknown, but one thing was certain, and that was that those who trespassed would die 10 times out of 10. The reason it was called the Emperor Fallen Sea was because an immortal emperor had once entered that dangerous place. Although he had left that dangerous place alive, he had inexplicably died before he could leave the Emperor Fallen Sea. As for the Sure clan, it was once a top clan in the Chaos Heavens, and also a clan that was older than the ancient dragon Phoenix. But countless years ago, for some unknown reason, this clan suddenly became the target of all the clans in the Chaos Heavens. As for what had happened countless years ago, even the immortal emperors on the round platform were a mystery to them, let alone ordinary cultivators. 10 drops of source heaven power that can be comprehended? On the round platform, a group of immortal emperors looked at the blood-red words above their heads and muttered to themselves. Powerful immortal emperors like the Genesis Primordial Spirit and the Limitless Immortal Emperor, who were above the 4-star level, did not have much change in their expressions. They just glanced at him, and no longer paid attention to him. Their attention returned to the world battlefield. After reaching the 4-star level, one would be able to condense Genesis Heaven power on their own without needing any gifts. On the other hand, the celestial emperors below the 4 stars, such as the Undermoon Empress, the Xingqiong Celestial Emperor, the Barren Celestial Emperor, and the Hei Wu Celestial Emperor, were eager to make a move. Unlike the Genesis Heaven power condensed from attacks by immortal emperors above the 4-star level, the Genesis Heaven power that could be used as a gift could be used for comprehension. It was said that one had to be at least a 7 or 8-star celestial emperor to be able to gather Genesis Heaven energy. Moreover, one would have to expend a certain amount of source energy. For this reason, it was rather difficult for immortal emperors below the 3-star level to obtain Genesis Heaven power. After all, no 7-star immortal emperor or above would be willing to use their origin energy to help a 3-star immortal emperor or below comprehend, unless the temptation was great enough. Side mission activated. Host: exterminate the Sure clan in the Fallen Emperor Sea. Mission reward: 150 drops of Genesis Heaven power. At that moment, the system's voice rang in Chu Bei's mind. Chu Bei was taken aback at first, but when he came back to his senses, the corners of his mouth curved upward. Although he did not know why the system wanted to exterminate the Sure clan, he knew what the reward of 150 drops of Genesis Heaven power meant. 3 years ago, he had used 100 drops of Genesis Heaven power to defeat a peak 6-star Genesis Primordial Spirit. As for what kind of terrifying power would erupt from using 150 drops of Genesis Heaven power at the same time, Chu Bei was a little excited and expectant at the thought of it. Moreover, he could still use the level 22 goods once, which could be considered as his life-saving means. At that moment, a divine rainbow streaked across the round platform and appeared below the line of blood-red words. Immediately after, several more divine streaks of light stood side by side with that divine streak of light. At that moment, a total of 9 immortal emperors appeared below the line of blood-red words. Immortal Emperor He Wu, Empress Under Moon, Immortal Emperor Yi Huang, Immortal Emperor Xing Qiong, Immortal Emperor Floating Island, Immortal Emperor Tsai Qiong, Immortal Emperor Yun He, Immortal Emperor Su Kong, and Immortal Emperor Gong Do. A total of 9. All of them are immortal emperors below 3-star. Are they all preparing to accept the decree of the Zero Organization and head to the fallen Emperor Sea to exterminate the Sure clan? After the cultivators above high heavens recognized the 9 immortal emperors, they immediately started discussing. Buzz buzz, above the Star Ocean Square, the line of blood-red words in the sky suddenly trembled, and then 9 crimson beams of light enveloped the 9 immortal emperors. However, these 9 crimson beams of light were quickly condensed into a mark by the 9 immortal emperors, which was temporarily imprinted between their eyebrows. The blood-red mark was a mark that everyone who accepted the mission of the Zero Organization would have. It did not cause any harm to the mission taker, and was just a symbol. On the contrary, because of the blood-red mark, these mission takers often received some benefits. After all, in the Chaos Multiverse, not many forces dared to directly ignore the Zero Organization. Even the Origin Sky Pavilion, which ranked first on the Emperor Grade faction ranking, had to give face to the Zero Organization. It was said that 100,000 years ago, the Zero Organization had taken a fancy to a talented disciple of the Origin Sky Pavilion and issued a decree above the Origin Sky Pavilion's headquarters. What shocked the world was that the Origin Sky Pavilion had actually given this talented disciple to the Zero Organization. Of course, the Zero Organization had not snatched this disciple by force, but it was a trade. They had also given a very attractive reward. However, although it was a trade, one could see how terrifying the Zero Organization was. After all, without strength, how would they dare to negotiate with the Origin Sky Pavilion? Aren't you all going? This is Genesis Heaven power that can be comprehended. It's a great opportunity for you all. The limitless Immortal Emperor looked at the 1-star Immortal Emperors beside him who had yet to move. Not to mention the fallen Emperor C, just the Sure clan alone. Do you think this mission is so easy? If you go, you might die. I'm still far from that threshold, so there's no need to gamble, said a peak 1-star Immortal Emperor. The 9 Supremes Immortal Emperors? Just as the cultivators on the square were discussing the 9 figures in the sky, a new figure appeared below the blood-red words. Look! That's the owner of the All Heavens shop. He's also going to accept the Zero Organization's mission and head to the fallen Emperor Sea to exterminate the Sure clan? Looking at the purple-robed figure who had suddenly appeared, the experts exclaimed after recognizing the other party's identity. Chapter 669. When Chu Bei appeared in the sky, the 4-star and above celestial emperors on the round platform all had strange expressions on their faces. There was a reason for those 3-star and below to accept this mission. After all, they all wanted to condense the power of Source Heaven to enter the 4th stage. However, the owner of the All Heavens shop was already a 6-star and above celestial emperor, so the reward from the Zero Force was not tempting to him at all. On the round platform, the group of celestial emperors glanced at Chu Bei and then at each other, their eyes filled with confusion and bewilderment. This guy probably just wants to join in the fun, the Genesis Primordial Spirit said indifferently. What? You want to go too? Are you going to attack him in the Emperor Fallen Sea? Suddenly, the limitless Celestial Emperor seemed to have noticed something and immediately looked at Celestial Emperor Yen Tian beside him. He killed my son, so I naturally have to compete with him. Celestial Emperor Yen Tian's eyes narrowed as he fixed his gaze on Chu Bei, his voice cold. The next moment, his figure disappeared from the round platform and appeared below the blood-red words. Look! Another Celestial Emperor has joined! That's Celestial Emperor Yen Tian! Heavens! Why would he accept this mission? I don't believe that he's trying to build a good relationship with the Zero Organization. He's Celestial Emperor Yen Tian, who is ranked 4th on the Emperor list. I really don't understand what Celestial Emperor Yen Tian and the owner of the All Heavens shop are thinking. They're already 6-star and above, so why would they accept this mission? Could it be that they're just going there for fun? For the two of them, there's no such thing as a dangerous place, right? Not to mention the high heavens, they can go to any corner of the vast chaotic heavens. With the addition of Celestial Emperor Yen Tian, he instantly replaced Chu Bei and became the new focus of the experts on the square. Chu Bei sized up Celestial Emperor Yen Tian and gradually frowned. He could feel that the other party was deliberately targeting him. He was a little puzzled. When had he ever had a conflict with the other party? Owner of All Heaven's shop, if I encounter any danger in the Emperor Fall Sea, I hope you can help me. A melodious voice sounded in Chu Bei's ears. Then a graceful figure flew to Chu Bei's side. It was the Moonlight Empress. If it really comes to that, I won't stand idly by if I can help. Chu Bei smiled knowingly and nodded slightly to the Moon Empress. Buzz buzz, another half a minute passed. The blood-red characters above the Star Ocean Square suddenly sank and then enveloped the 11 immortal emperors, including Chu Bei and immortal Emperor Yen Tian. What made all the cultivators in high heavens excited was that after the blood-red words representing the Zero Factions decree disappeared, it was replaced by the images of the 11 immortal emperors. In other words, they could watch everything that happened to the 11 immortal emperors in Emperor Fallen Sea from afar. Great! Absolute Land Emperor Luo Hai is about to unveil his veil! An expert shouted. Emperor Fallen Sea was located in the northernmost part of high heavens. It was vast and boundless. The seawater churned, and every wave contained a broken world. There were space-time fragments circulating as they rose and fell. Immortal Emperor aura permeated the sea, and immortal Emperor skeletons floated up and down. Looking at the center of the sea, there was a black halo visible to the naked eye. It was like a bottomless black abyss, giving people a sense of fear. Even if I'm watching through the projection, I still feel an inexplicable pressure. Looking at Emperor Fallen Sea, countless cultivators in high heavens took a deep breath and felt their breathing stop. Surrounded by the blood-red characters, Chu Bei, Yen Tian, and the 11 immortal emperors instantly entered the black halo in the center of Emperor Fallen Sea. This absolute land was indeed a small world, but what surprised Chu Bei was that compared to the outside world, the immortal chi here was very scarce. It was not suitable for cultivators to cultivate here. When Xiaochen squinted his eyes, all he could see was a golden desert that stretched as far as the eye could see. There were some forests and wastelands in the boundless desert, but with a wisp of divine consciousness, he could detect that there were no minerals that could be used for cultivation, not to mention the most precious and rare source Heaven Stone Mine. On the other side, on the All Heavens shop's light field in Emperor District, a middle-aged man in a green robe pointed at the image in the sky where Chu Bei and the others were. His lips moved continuously as if he was saying something. In front of him were nearly 10,000 young men and women. You've joined the All Heavens shop for 3 years and have some understanding of the All Heavens shop's basic cultivation techniques. However, you've only heard about the sect master from the records in the books and the sect's elders. Now your chance is here. You can witness the sect master's powerful strength with your own eyes. With the sect master overseeing things, the All Heavens shop will prosper. 100 years later, when you look back, you'll realize that joining the All Heavens shop was the best choice in your life. There's no other choice. The green-robed man's voice grew louder and louder. He looked at Chu Bei in the image with respect written all over his face. Yes, yes. After hearing the green-robed man's words, nearly 10,000 young men and women nodded. Their eyes were firmly fixed on Chu Bei in the image. Is that the Forbidden Land in the Emperor Fallen Sea? It's very different from what I imagined. I thought it was rich in immortal chi, but it's so barren. It's all desolate. If it weren't for the countless experts who disappeared, it would be difficult to associate it with the Forbidden Land. Above the heavens, all the cultivators stared blankly at the projection above their heads. When they saw the environment of the Forbidden Land in the Emperor Fallen Sea, they began to discuss. If there's really a remnant of the Slaughter Clan here, It should be in that direction. The Moonlight Empress frowned slightly and pointed to the northwest. That's what I thought. He Wu Immortal Emperor, Yi Huang Immortal Emperor, and the others nodded in unison. They were looking in the same direction as the Moonlight Empress. They could all sense that there was a special and rich emperor's aura in the northwest. Chu Bei was silent as he sensed the forbidden land. From time to time, some strange-looking spirits would emerge from the golden sand. Their energy fluctuations were negligible. They had barely stepped onto the path of cultivation. In Chu Bei's opinion, these spirits should be the natives of this world. As for why there weren't any strong cultivators, perhaps they were all slaughtered by the Slaughter Clan. The Slaughter Clan is not to be underestimated. To avoid any accidents, let's go together. Yi Huang Immortal Emperor looked to the northwest and said, "Boom!" However, just as Yi Huang Immortal Emperor finished speaking, before the group could move, a terrifying Immortal Emperor's power erupted and swept out into the distance. Chapter 670. Who's there? What's going on? The Immortal Emperors exclaimed and turned to look at Immortal Emperor Yen Tian in unison. Fellow Taoist Yen Tian, what do you mean by this? The Shi clan is not a clan that we can kill at will. I'm sure you know how terrifying they are. What you're doing will definitely alarm them. By then, the difficulty of the mission will increase. This is no longer a matter of whether we can complete the mission or not. There's a possibility that one of us will die. Undermoon, Stardome, Desolation, He Wu, and the other Immortal Emperors frowned. At this moment, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's body was surrounded by Immortal Emperor power. He held a slender purple longsword in his right hand. The tip of the sword moved slightly, carrying terrifying Emperor Dao runes. Origin Heaven power floated up and down around the sword, making one's heart palpitate. What's he thinking? Not only the Immortal Emperors in the land of extremists, but the Immortal Emperors on the round platform on the Star Ocean Square also looked at Immortal Emperor Yen Tian in confusion. As for the other experts on the square, although they were even more confused, they also noticed something strange. Buzz, buzz, buzz! At this moment, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian suddenly raised the purple longsword in his hand and pointed it at Chu Bei. This simple action caused the expressions of the other Immortal Emperors on top of the golden gravel to freeze. Not only them, but all the Immortal Emperors on the Star Ocean Square were also stunned. This scene came so suddenly that they were caught off guard and could not react for a moment. What's Immortal Emperor Yen Tian doing? He's pointing his sword at the owner of the All Heavens shop. Oh my God, could this be the reason why he accepted the mission? But I've never heard of any conflict between Immortal Emperor Yen Tian and the owner of the All Heavens shop. It would make sense if it were the limitless Immortal Emperor. After all, he's a battle maniac. In the entire High Heavens, more than half of the Immortal Emperors have been forced to spar with him. However, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian has always been low-key. Why would he suddenly do this? In the High Heavens, all the cultivators stared at the scene above their heads in shock. This is interesting. There's going to be a good show. The owner of the All Heavens shop has been in the limelight for too long in recent years. It's time to take him down a notch. Yen Tian is a pretty good choice. On the round platform, the three celestial emperors representing the Dragon Spring sect, Divine Tao Mountain, and Thousand Green Island looked at each other and smiled. In their opinion, Chu Bei was no match for Immortal Emperor Yen Tian. Yen Tian, what are you trying to do? Moonlight Empress, Desolation Immortal Emperor, Xing Qiong Immortal Emperor, and other experts stared coldly at Yen Tian Immortal Emperor and questioned him. Since when do I need to explain my actions to you, juniors? As Immortal Emperor Yen Tian snorted coldly, Genesis Heaven power separated from his surroundings and headed towards Empress Undermoon and the others. It was as if the Genesis Heaven power would erupt and kill him if he said another word. Upon hearing Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's words, the expressions of Undermoon, Desolation, Floating Island, He Wu, and the other Immortal Emperors darkened. In terms of birth, Yen Tian was several epochs older than them. However, they had already reached the Immortal Emperor stage, and were one of the overlords of high heavens. How could they not be angry when Yen Tian called them juniors? If it weren't for the 110 drops of Genesis heaven power floating around Yen Tian, they would have already attacked. Fellow cultivator Yen Tian, I'm very curious. When did we cross paths? Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at Immortal Emperor Yen Tian with interest. There was a hint of playfulness and confusion in his eyes. I have a son guarding a major region, but he was killed in the realm sea of that major region not long ago. Before he died, he transmitted a scene back to me through the realm wall, and the only person he saw was you. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's voice was low and filled with anger. What? The owner of the All Heavens shop killed Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's son? How could such a thing happen? If that's the case, doesn't the grudge between the owner of the All Heavens shop and Immortal Emperor Yen Tian stem from his son's death? When did this happen? But judging from the expression of the owner of the All Heavens shop, he didn't seem to know that the person he killed was Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's son. Nonsense! If he knew that it was Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's son, who would dare to not give him face? Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's words resounded throughout high heaven through the projection in the sky. In an instant, all the experts, including those on the Star Ocean Square, opened their mouths wide in shock. This is going to be difficult. It seems that we can't persuade him. The floating island Immortal Emperor and the cloud crane Immortal Emperor sighed one after another. Owner of the All Heavens shop, in my opinion, you should leave first. Don't get involved in this matter. The Empress under the moon glanced at the 110 drops of Genesis heaven power floating around Immortal Emperor Yen Tian, and after a moment of hesitation, she looked at Chu Bei and said, I see. Since it was done by me, I will naturally admit that your son might have been killed by me. Chu Bei didn't give any explanation, and directly replied. He had indeed killed an emperor in the realm sea, but that was already considered an emperor corpse. Are you going to attack me here? Chu Bei looked calmly at Immortal Emperor Yen Tian and asked. If the other party really wanted to kill him, then he would have to use the level 22 product in advance. The power of the level 22 product was equivalent to 120 drops of Genesis heaven power. Fortunately, the level 22 product had a time limit, although it was relatively short. During this time, he was confident that he could defeat Immortal Emperor Yen Tian, and even complete the marked task to obtain 150 more drops of Genesis heaven power. If you lose, I will destroy your cultivation. As the cold voice faded, the void around Immortal Emperor Yen Tian was suddenly cut open, and a sharp and threatening sword intent spiraled around his body along with the Genesis heaven power. The purple sword in his hand trembled and revealed its sharpness, making people tremble in fear. At this moment, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian gave people the feeling that he was a peerless divine sword that had been unsheathed, overflowing with a sharp and murderous aura. Feeling the terrifying sword intent deliberately targeting him, Chu Bei could not help but look at the purple sword in Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's hand. It was definitely not an ordinary Immortal Emperor weapon, but the Immortal Emperor weapon of Immortal Emperor Yen Tian. The first round of the faction battle is not over yet, but we can already see the bloodthirsty Emperor Yen Tian's sword? How interesting! On the round platform, a 5-star Immortal Emperor expert looked at the purple sword in Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's hand and laughed. The Yen Tian sword sect was the 4th Emperor-level faction in the high heavens, second only to the Dragon Spring sect, Divine Path Mountain, and Qiantsang Island. Just by hearing the name, one could tell that it was a sword sect, and all of its disciples had entered the Tao through the sword. Chapter 671. There were close to 100 Emperor-level forces in the Chaos Heavens that cultivated Sword Tao, but the Yen Tian Sword Sect was the undisputed number 1 in terms of Sword Tao ranking. In the Chaotic Realms, there was a saying that the Empyrean Sword Celestial was 1 level higher than the Empyrean Sword Celestial. It meant that in a battle of life and death between 2 cultivators of the same level, if both of them entered the Tao through the sword, the Empyrean Sword Celestial would undoubtedly emerge victorious. The most famous person in the Yen Tian sword sect was the sect master, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian. He cultivated sword Dao and fought all over the chaos heavens with his purple sword. He was famous for his sharp attacks and ferocious sword techniques. In terms of understanding of sword Dao, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian was ranked second among the known immortal emperors except for those mysterious and unknown transcendent forces. In short, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian was the most revered and worshipped sword Dao cultivators. Of course, the reason why Immortal Emperor Yen Tian became the #1 expert in the Dao of the sword was because of his cultivation, a peak 7-star Immortal Emperor. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian wielded the Yen Tian sword. Even without the power of Origin Heaven on the sword, the sharp sword intent was enough to draw the attention of the other immortal emperors present. Buzz buzz buzz! The void trembled as the sword chi around Immortal Emperor Yen Tian became more and more terrifying. An energy storm began to sweep out with him as the center. The battle is about to begin! Sensing the rising momentum of Immortal Emperor Yen Tian, Undermoon, Desolation, Stardome, and the other immortal emperors looked at each other. Immortal Emperor power emerged from their bodies and enveloped them. At the same time, they retreated to make enough space for Immortal Emperor Yen Tian and Chu Bei to fight. Chu Bei calmly stared at Immortal Emperor Yen Tian without uttering a single word. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's cold and majestic voice rang out again. "I won't forgive you for killing my son!" At this moment, he no longer suppressed his sharp sword intent. The purple sword in his hand suddenly burst out with dazzling emperor light, giving off a domineering and ferocious aura. Wisps of chilling sword light materialized into peerless divine swords that spanned across the sky. Boundless sword chi and sword intent were compressed together, extremely condensed and violent. The distance between Immortal Emperor Yen Tian and Chu Bei was only a few meters. However, as the sword light surged, the space within a few meters seemed to have turned into a brand new vast world. It contained the surging Milky Way, the boundless star region, and the huge stars. The terrifying sword light flashed in this space, shaking the heavens and the earth. "His sword is even more terrifying!" On the Star Ocean Square, the immortal emperors on the round platform frowned as they watched Immortal Emperor Yen Tian on the battlefield. The purple sword in his hand emitted surging sword light, turning the horizon into a mere foot. He was clearly separated from them by the boundless starry sky, but he was right in front of them. The tip of the overflowing heaven's sword seemed to be not only aimed at the owner of the All Heavens shop, but also right in front of them. Even though they were separated by the boundless starry sky, they could still feel the terrifying coldness in the sword light. In particular, when the 110 drops of Source Heaven power around Immortal Emperor Yen Tian were added to the purple sword, its terrifying sword intent rose to an even more terrifying level. At this moment, it could be said that the only thing left on the battlefield was the purple long sword. Extremely far and extremely close, extremely large and extremely small. They contradicted each other, but they appeared at the same time, giving people a sense of powerfulness that they could not resist. It was as if it was going to break the entire sky. The Source Heaven power gathered in the sword body, and the sword light did not dissipate. The terrifying sword intent filled the 4 extremities and 8 desolations, seeping out of the boundary walls of the land of extremity, and dissipating throughout the entire Emperor Fallen Sea and even further away. The arrogant and wild sword intent brought about an energy storm that cut through the starry sky. This was Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's sword. It could destroy heaven and earth. As expected of the #1 Immortal Emperor of the Sword Dao. Do you think the owner of the All Heavens shop can withstand Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's sword? It'll be difficult. You should know that even the limitless Immortal Emperor was defeated in the last Immortal Emperor battle. Although the owner of the All Heavens shop is strong, he still has no hope against Immortal Emperor Yen Tian. It's all because Immortal Emperor Yen Tian is too strong. Yes, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian is the strongest Immortal Emperor of the Sword Dao, not only in the high heavens, but in the entire chaotic heavens. All the cultivators in the high heavens stared unblinkingly at the battlefield above their heads. Their gazes were all focused on Immortal Emperor Yen Tian, or more accurately, on the Emperor's sword that he used to prove his Dao. I'll only use one sword. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's cold voice rang out as he swung the purple sword in his hand. In an instant, the vast battlefield was filled with terrifying sword light. In just an instant, the hundreds of millions of sword light blended together to form a terrifying sword that seemed to be able to destroy the 9 desolations. Chu Bei heaved a long sigh of relief in the face of such a sword. One had to admit that immortal Emperor Yen Tian's strength was far beyond that of a Genesis primordial spirit. However, in front of all the cultivators in the high heavens, Chu Bei could not lose face. Since his opponent was arrogant, he had to be even more arrogant. At this moment, whether it was the immortal emperors in the land of extremity, or on the round platform in the Star Ocean Square, or all the cultivators in the high heavens, they all held their breaths and focused on immortal Emperor Yen Tian's sword. The powerhouses of the All Heavens shop who were watching the battle tensed up, and their eyes were filled with anxiety and worry. Yen Tian's name and the might of his sword Dao were renowned throughout the chaotic great heavens. Although their sect master was strong, they did not have any confidence in facing the number 1 sword Dao powerhouse in the great heavens. The moment immortal Emperor Yen Tian swung his sword, a terrifying energy fluctuation appeared around Chu Bei. Behind him, a strangely shaped ancient tree that exuded an ancient aura appeared. It had thousands of gorgeous leaves. These leaves were of the same size, but their colors and shapes were all strange and unique. The branches and leaves swayed and buzzed. Thousands of colors of different shades rippled above the ancient tree, sometimes changing into various shapes. An extremely dense and refreshing aura that caused one's mind to be refreshed diffused out from the thousands of leaves, and it rippled through the battlefield and transformed into a miraculous scene. Above the ancient tree, a baby jumped and waved its small white hands as if it was controlling the ancient tree under its feet. In addition to the Bodhi ancient tree, 3 other huge figures appeared. They were the Path Understanding Tree, the Nether Tree, and the World Tree. These 4 ancient trees formed a square with the Bodhi ancient tree as the center. The branches swayed and changed positions as if they respected the Bodhi ancient tree. Hum! With a rumble, the Path Understanding Tree, the Nether Tree, and the World Tree merged into the Bodhi ancient tree. At the same time, a strange energy ball poured into the Bodhi ancient tree. This energy ball was the level 22 item that Chu Bei had exchanged for. In the end, the Bodhi ancient tree was smelted into a 5-colored longsword. Chapter 672. When Chu Bei held the 5-colored longsword in his hand, thousands of 5-colored sword lights suddenly shot out from Chu Bei's body. In an instant, they blocked the line of sight of all the experts and surrounded the latter. Afterwards, a violent thrum rang out from the 5-colored sword, echoing through the sky. The thrum was like a primordial beast that had suddenly awakened from its slumber. At this moment, all the immortal emperors on the round stage of the Star Ocean Square suddenly stood up and straightened their bodies. Their eyes shone brightly as they stared fixedly at Chu Bei, who was enveloped by the 5-colored sword light. Their faces were filled with shock. The other experts on the square also widened their eyes when they saw these sword rays. In their line of sight, all they could see was the endless 5-colored sword light. They couldn't see Chu Bei behind the sword light at all. At this moment, they only felt a stabbing pain in their eyes. Even their divine senses felt as if they were being pricked by needles. All the cultivators in high heavens stared at the 5-colored sword in Chu Bei's hand in a daze. They inexplicably felt a heart-palpitating cruelty and brutality as if it was filled with endless destructive and murderous intent. It was the symbol of the most terrible disaster in the world. It felt as if the most violent and tyrannical wild beast had finally broken out of its cage and descended to the world to destroy the grand heavens. Undermoon, Desolation, Stardome, Hei Wu, and the other immortal emperors who were also in the danger ground felt the most keenly. This is the sword of the All-Heaven Shop Master? When he fought against Centauria Empress, I saw him use this sword. Its power was only equivalent to 2 stars of an immortal emperor. It can't be compared to immortal Emperor Yen Tian's sword at all. But what's going on? The five-colored sword rays give me a feeling that they are not inferior to immortal Emperor Yan Tian's sword at all. Moreover, I have a vague feeling that his sword is even more ferocious and overbearing than immortal Emperor Yan Tian's sword, even fiercer and fiercer. No, this is not an illusion. Judging from the aura, the sword of the All-Heavens Shop Master is indeed superior to immortal Emperor Yan Tian's sword. Because they were all in the same danger zone, Moonlight Empress, Black Void Immortal Emperor, and the others quickly determined the strength of the two swords she waves. Because of this, they all revealed looks of disbelief. Qi. As Chu Bei waved the five-colored long sword in his hand, the thousands of five-colored sword lights on the surface of his body suddenly converged and turned into a bright brilliance. Like a meteor across the sky, it flashed and disappeared in a flash to meet the sword of immortal Emperor Yan Tian. Just as Chu Bei attacked with his sword, the sky instantly lost its color and fell into a boundless pitch black, like an abyss of destruction. Clang! Two supreme sword lights imbued with Genesis heaven power collided and intertwined. At the next moment, a heart-trembling sound of sword light clashing rang out from the land of extremity, reverberating through the entire high heavens and filling up every corner. Under the gaze of all the cultivators, the two supreme sword lights first balanced for a long time. But soon, one of the sword lights distorted and collapsed before exploding into an endless storm of sword qi. It tore through the void barrier of the land of extremity, and wreaked havoc in the sky above the Emperor Fallen Sea. The scattered sword qi destroyed everything in the surroundings. As for the purple sword lights that remained in the land of extremity, they were disintegrated by the five-colored sword lights before they could run rampant. The sword qi and sword auras continued to crumble, becoming small and weak until they no longer had any power. In the end, they turned into gusts of wind in the air and disappeared without a trace. Immortal Emperor Yan Tian's sword disappeared. Is the All-Heavens Shop's owner's sword really so terrifying? In the end, we still underestimated the All-Heavens Shop Master. No matter what the final outcome is, just that sword alone is enough to prove that he is qualified to compete with a peak 7 stars immortal emperor. It's too terrifying. Such a person, yet we still can't figure out his background. We know nothing about him. Now that I think about it, I'm really scared. Back when we were fighting for the Source Heaven Stone Mine in the Great Lost Territory, if he had used such a sword on me, I would have probably died in the Great Lost Territory with hatred. Below the moon, Star Dome, Desolation, Floating Island, and the other immortal emperors who were in the land of extremity were the first to react. They exclaimed in shock and looked at Chu Bei with deep respect. How is this possible? How can you withstand this emperor's sword? Looking at the annihilation of his sword, Yan Tian's sword master's expression changed and was filled with astonishment. In terms of sword principle, he stood at the peak of the great chaotic territory. If he claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. Ever since he had attacked with his sword, no sword cultivator had been able to withstand his sword because no sword cultivator had reached his level. Of course, he had been defeated before, but not by his opponent's sword principle, but by his opponent's strongest killing technique. He was confident that if someone could defeat him with a sword, that person would be at least a 9 stars intermediate immortal emperor. It was also because of his invincible sword principle that he fell into a momentary trance when he witnessed his sword move being destroyed by Chu Bei. Again! Yan Tian Celestial Emperor's mind was no longer on the so-called revenge of his son's death. At this moment, he only wanted to urgently verify how strong Chu Bei's sword Dao was. With a cold shout, immortal Emperor Yan Tian brandished his purple longsword again. This time, it was not a sword ray, but the sword itself that was swung at Chu Bei. To be precise, it was swung at Chu Bei's sword ray that had yet to dissipate. Rumble! The tip of the Yan Tian sword flickered with a black light and swayed in the void. It seemed to be moving slowly, but with the support of 110 drops of Source Heaven power, it seemed to be stacked layer by layer, and the sword qi became even more terrifying. Upon closer inspection, Yen Tian Celestial Emperor's sword blade flickered with a solemn black light like an endless black hole that contained one world after another. These worlds seemed to be going through a process of birth, aging, collapse, and finally extinction. Clang! There was another earth-shattering collision sound. Unlike before, it was the purple sword in Yen Tian Celestial Emperor's hand that collided with Chu Bei's five-colored sword ray. In an instant, the five-colored sword ray was blocked by the purple sword and could not advance any further. However, it did not retreat, nor did it show the slightest sign of collapsing. The two sides seemed to have reached a balance point. The two terrifying swords she intertwined and seemed to have cut the battlefield in half. You told me that you would only use one sword move, but you broke your promise. Chu Bei looked at Yen Tian Celestial Emperor expressionlessly and said calmly. The next moment, Chu Bei swung the five-colored sword for the second time, and another five-colored sword ray shot out from the blade. Kacha! When Chu Bei's second sword ray reached the battlefield and merged with the first sword ray, the originally balanced situation was instantly broken. Chapter 673. With a crisp sound, a crack appeared on the purple longsword in Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's hand. The crack continued to spread as if it was about to shatter. Puff! The moment the purple longsword cracked, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's aura suddenly became chaotic. His face turned pale as he spat out golden blood. At the same time, a sword ray penetrated the terminus barrier. When it swept across the Emperor-Fallen Sea, it directly turned the sea into a vacuum, evaporating all the seawater. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian quickly withdrew his sword and put some distance between him and Chu Bei. His expression was grave and vigilant. Undermoon, Desolation, Stardome, Hei Wu, and the other immortal emperors in the terminus barrier looked at each other with stiff and numb expressions. On the other hand, Chu Bei stood quietly in the void on the battlefield. His expression was calm, as if nothing had happened. However, they had witnessed it with their own eyes and the terrifying sword force that had yet to dissipate. All these told everyone that the previous battle was real and not an illusion. Yen Tian was defeated. He was defeated by the sword Dao that he's best at. This result is really unexpected, really surprising. We still underestimated the owner of the All Heavens shop. Yeah, who would have thought that even Yen Tian would be defeated by him? It seems that we won't be able to extinguish the spirit of the owner of the All Heavens business. The three immortal emperors who represented the Dragon Spring sect, Divine Path Mountain, and Thousand Green Islands stared at the battlefield in a daze. Obviously, the result of the battle had shocked them. To be exact, it was not just the three of them. All the immortal emperors on the round platform were stunned. Most of them had yet to recover from the shock, and their faces were still filled with shock. How could this be? Limitless Immortal Emperor muttered to himself as if he could not accept the result. As a battle maniac, he had forced many immortal emperors to fight with him and grew stronger through battle. At the beginning of the battle, he originally wanted to spar with the owner of the All Heavens shop and teach him a lesson. Unexpectedly, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian attacked before he could. More importantly, Immortal Emperor Yen Tian was defeated. Moreover, he had lost to the sword Dao. In terms of power, he was still weaker than Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's sword. In that case, wouldn't he be even less of a match for the All Heavens shop's store master? Brother Yuanling, wasn't he still an early stage 7-star 3 years ago? What was going on? Don't tell me that it only took him 3 years to grow from an early stage 7-star celestial emperor to the point where he could defeat Yen Tian. The limitless celestial emperor looked at the Genesis origin spirit and frowned slightly. Do you think that 3 years ago, I would only attack him after knowing that he had the strength of an early stage 7-star? The Genesis primordial spirit snorted. The origin of the owner of All Heavens shop is unknown, and his strength is even more of a mystery. Remember, don't be fooled by his appearance. Perhaps what he is displaying now is still not his true strength. Upon hearing the words of the Genesis primordial spirit, the limitless immortal emperor's battle intent toward Chu Bei dimmed even more. The more he didn't know about someone, the more vigilant he had to be. No. Impossible. On the battlefield of the Emperor Fallen Sea, immortal Emperor Yen Tian stared at Chu Bei as if he wanted to say something, but because he had yet to recover from the shock, he couldn't utter a complete sentence. Before I drew my sword, you said that if I lost, you would sever my cultivation. Chu Bei put his left hand behind his back and held the five-color sword in his right hand. He looked at immortal Emperor Yen Tian calmly. Then I will also destroy your cultivation and destroy your emperor weapon. Just as Chu Bei's indifferent voice faded, he brandished the five-color sword in his right hand and slashed out 3 times in a row. In an instant, 3 terrifying five-color sword lights blasted towards immortal Emperor Yen Tian and arrived in the blink of an eye. In the face of these 3 five-color sword lights, immortal Emperor Yen Tian had no time to think. He immediately summoned the purple sword in his hand, and with the support of 110 drops of source heaven power, he swept towards the 3 five-color sword lights. But just as it was about to collide with the first five-color sword light, the last 2 five-color sword lights suddenly disappeared and merged into the first sword light. Suddenly, the aura of the 5 sword gleams that were formed from 3 combined into 1 rose once more. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's pupils shrank when he sensed the sword light that was obviously superior to his own. But at this moment, he had no way to retreat. Even though he knew he was no match, he could only resist. Ka! This time, perhaps because of the cracks on the purple longsword, the moment it intersected with the 5-colored sword light, the cracks on the sword body expanded rapidly. Then, with a crisp sound, the sword body completely shattered. At the same time, the 110 drops of source heaven power that had merged into the sword body were also destroyed by the 5-color sword light, turning everything into nothingness. Chi chi chi, the 5-color sword light bombarded immortal Emperor Yen Tian's body, tearing apart every part of his body. Miserable screams of pain swept across the battlefield. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's face twisted in pain, as if he was suffering inhumane torture. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's miserable screams of pain spread across the perilous battlefield, penetrating the barrier of the perilous battlefield, and drifting across the entire Emperor Fallen Sea and the vast chaotic Great Domain. Countless cultivators in high heaven heard the miserable screams and looked at immortal Emperor Yen Tian's expression in the projection of the battlefield in the sky. They instinctively gulped, and when they looked at Chu Bei again, their eyes were filled with fear. At this moment, with a sword hum, a droplet-shaped object appeared at the tip of the 5-color sword in Chu Bei's hand. Look! That's source heaven power! 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops, 4 drops, 5 drops, exactly 120 drops. Oh my God! 120 drops of source heaven power! Doesn't that mean the owner of the All Heaven shop has stepped into the 8 stars stage? The eyes of all the cultivators in high heaven were focused on the droplets floating around the 5-color sword in Chu Bei's hand, and their faces were filled with shock. He really stepped into the 8 stars stage. The owner of the All Heaven's shop really hid his strength well. In the entire high heaven, only the Dragon Spring sect, Divine Path Mountain, and Qiantsang Island, who were still in closed-door cultivation, could defeat him. Upon seeing the amount of source heaven power Chu Bei used, the Genesis Yuan spirit, Wuji, and the other immortal emperors on the round platform suddenly stood up, and their eyes narrowed. Amidst everyone's astonishment, the battlefield in the Emperor Fallen Sea gradually calmed down, and immortal Emperor Yen Tian's shrill screams faded away. Although the 5-color sword light that penetrated immortal Emperor Yen Tian's body had all disappeared, under the devastation of the sword light, immortal Emperor Yen Tian's aura had clearly weakened, and his power fluctuations had dropped several levels. At this moment, his aura fluctuations were even weaker than a 5 stars immortal emperor. Chapter 674. It's over. The Moonlight Empress, immortal Emperor Xingqiong, immortal Emperor He Wu, and the others looked at each other. The moment immortal Emperor Yen Tian's emperor weapon shattered, they knew the battle was over. At this moment, they realized how powerful and terrifying the owner of the All Heavens shop was. From now on, the number one sword Dao Immortal Emperor of the Great Chaotic Heavens was no longer Immortal Emperor Yen Tian, but the owner of the All Heavens shop. At the same time, in the All Heavens shop square in the Emperor District. Did you see that? That's the strength of our Lord Sect Master! A middle-aged man in a green robe said excitedly. His face was filled with excitement, and his expression was full of worship for Chu Bei. In front of the green-robed man were thousands of new disciples. They were also extremely excited after witnessing the battle. You've been in the All Heavens shop for quite some time now. I'm sure you're familiar with the cultivation environment of the All Heavens shop. The immortal qi here is much more abundant than the other Emperor districts. As for the All Heavens shop's cultivation techniques, they're far more profound than the other forces. They're not even on the same level. The more the green-robed man spoke, the more excited he became. Our Lord Sect Master even defeated the number one sword Dao Immortal Emperor Yen Tian. He's an 8-star Immortal Emperor. The disciples nodded vigorously. The longer they stayed in the All Heavens shop, the more they could feel the benefits of the cultivation environment. Noticing the disciples' expressions, the green-robed man suddenly changed his tone and said, I'm not telling you this to show off or make you proud. I'm just telling you a truth. The better your conditions are, the more you have to work hard. That's the only way to live up to such a good environment. Upon hearing that, the disciples bowed to the green-robed man in unison. Yes, Lord Sect Master. They were all natives of high heavens. Since they were young, they were familiar with the 39 Emperor districts and their Emperor-level factions. To them, before joining the All Heavens shop, the Yen Tian Sword Sect, which was ranked 4th on the Upper Heavens ranking, was something they could only dream of. They did not even dare to dream of joining it. Not long ago, before Chu Bei defeated Immortal Emperor Yen Tian, these disciples felt inferior to the Yen Tian Sword Sect even though they were still loyal to the All Heavens shop. After all, the Sky Spill Sword Sect had stood above high heaven for hundreds of millions of years, leaving an unreachable prestige in the hearts of all cultivators. On the other hand, the All Heavens shop they were in had been established for less than 100 years. It could be said that it was still in its infancy stage. In terms of psychological power, it was far inferior to the Yen Tian Sword Sect. Because of this, they became worried after learning that Chu Bei had killed Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's son. Unexpectedly, the result of this battle was Chu Bei's heaven-shaking sword that shattered Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's Dao-confirming weapon. This scene greatly shocked the spectating disciples, especially when Chu Bei used Immortal Emperor Yen Tian's most famous sword Dao to defeat him. Later on, when they saw the 120 drops of source heaven power around Chu Bei and learned that he was an 8-star Immortal Emperor, they felt as if a mountain had been lifted from their hearts. It was as if they had seen the sun after seeing the clouds. The All Heavens shop is not weaker than any Emperor-grade faction. Such thoughts appeared in the minds of the disciples and gradually took root in their minds. So Master used the sword to prove his Dao. The sword is Master's strongest killing technique. I really want to learn the sword from Master. Maybe the sword Dao is only one of Master's many divine abilities. That makes sense. Master is unfathomable. How can he be so easily seen through? Bu Xian, Bing Tong Tong, and little Long Huang glanced at Chu Bei on the battlefield, then looked at each other and spoke one after another. It would be great if Master could refine a similar 5-colored divine sword for me. Little Long Huang stared at the 5-colored divine sword in Chu Bei's hand with a burning gaze. You really dare to think of anything? We should focus on cultivation and try to impress Master as soon as possible so that we can become his personal disciples. Bing Tong Tong rolled her eyes at little Long Huang. In the depths of the Emperor Fallen Sea, in the center of the boundless sea of trees flashing with white light, an incomparably huge figure floated quietly in the void. Unlike ordinary humans, his hair was golden, and there were 3 strange black runes on his forehead. His eyes were blood-red and flowed with a demonic light. Behind this black figure were thousands of figures similar to him. They were clearly his clansmen. In front of him was a huge screen that showed the area where Chu Bei, Undermoon, Hei Wu, and the other immortal emperors were. Patriarch, do you know who that person is? I've never heard of such a Sword Dao immortal emperor before. Yan Tian and this guy have become variables in our plan this time. Although Yan Tian's emperor weapon has been destroyed and there's nothing to be afraid of, that guy is still a big threat to us. A figure stretched out his hand and pointed at Chu Bei on the screen as he spoke. Previously, these powerhouses of the Shi clan had watched the entire battle between Chu Bei and immortal emperor Yan Tian. So what if he's an 8-star immortal emperor? Now that our formation has been completed, even a peak 8-star immortal emperor will die, let alone a beginner 8-star immortal emperor. They'll become nourishment for our ancestors' resurrection. As long as our ancestor is resurrected, our bloodline can truly return to the clan. There's no need to wander. The leader of the Shi clan narrowed his eyes. With a wave of his hand, the screen with Chu Bei and the others in front of him disappeared. At the same time, a terrifying force that wanted to tear the sky apart spread out. This aura was not much weaker than immortal emperor Yan Tian. He had also entered the 7-star immortal emperor realm, but he was only at the beginner 7-star immortal emperor realm. He floated there as if he was the center of this desolate land. Use these immortal emperors as nourishment to resurrect our ancestor. Return to the clan. Thousands of members of the Shi clan looked at each other and shouted at the same time when they heard their leader's words. Even the weakest aura was at the 9th heaven of the immortal king realm. Owner of the All Heavens shop, your battle is over. Do you think it's time to deal with the remaining members of the Shi clan? The Empress under the moon came in front of Chu Bei and smiled sweetly. She had the intention of befriending him. The way she addressed him changed and became respectful. Chu Bei looked at the Empress under the moon with his hands behind his back. He didn't say anything and just nodded at her and the other immortal emperors. Compared to these immortal emperors, he was actually more anxious. After all, there was a time limit to the use of the level 22 goods. If the mission was not completed after this time, the reward of 150 drops of source heaven energy would fly away in vain. Then, he would suffer a great loss. Seeing Chu Bei's attitude, the Empress under the moon, Hei Wu, Xingqiong, and the other immortal emperors looked at each other. After communicating with their eyes, they rushed in the direction of the mysterious energy fluctuation at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the Empress under the moon and the others were out of the boundless golden desert. In front of them, a huge black shadow stood on the horizon in the distance. It was extremely lofty. Rumble. However, just as they tore open space and were about to enter the danger zone, a mysterious force that was no weaker than their own emerged from the danger zone and blocked them outside. What's going on? Why is it that with our strength, we can't even break a mere boundary wall? Where did this power come from? The Genesis Primordial Spirit, the Limitless Celestial Emperor, and the other experts paused and looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. Rumble. At the same time, the projection of the scene in the sky became hazy. I can't see anything. Did something happen in the danger zone? Will those immortal emperors be alright? Looking at the suddenly turbid projection, the expressions of all the cultivators in the sky changed abruptly. The Emperor Province cultivators who had immortal emperors with them were even more worried, as if they were afraid that something would happen to their immortal emperors in the danger zone. Even the divine sense has been blocked. The Wuji Celestial Emperor frowned. Could it be the doing of a Shi clan expert? The Genesis Primordial Spirit guessed. This mysterious force is at least at the peak of the 8-star Immortal Emperor level. If the Shi clan had such an expert now, why would they hide in the danger zone of the Emperor Fallen Sea? The Wuji Celestial Emperor responded. Then where did this force come from? The Genesis Primordial Spirit frowned. I'm afraid only those guys who entered the danger zone know. The Wuji Celestial Emperor stared at the danger zone enveloped by the mysterious force with a deep gaze. At the same time, in the depths of the danger zone in the Emperor Fallen Sea, These emperor fruit trees have been tampered with. They've become a killing array. It must be the Shi clan's doing. The Undermoon Empress, Xingqiong Immortal Emperor, Yihuang Immortal Emperor, Floating Island Immortal Emperor, and the other experts looked around in shock. Their auras rose to the peak as the Immortal Emperor power flowed on the surface of their bodies, and their eyes were filled with vigilance. Just earlier, when they were about to pluck the Emperor fruit trees, the intertwining shade of the trees actually lit up with resplendent divine light at the same time. Subsequently, the 12 ancient tree trunks burst out with beams of light that shot into the sky. Amidst the heart-palpitating roar, the 12 beams of light formed an incomparably terrifying array. In just an instant, this array sealed off the entire danger zone. Even though they were immortal emperors, they couldn't leave the danger zone, and the immortal emperors from the outside world couldn't enter either. These emperor fruit trees have been tampered with. Their auras are closely connected, and they've been arranged into a terrifying array. Looking at the 12 beams of light emitted by the emperor fruit trees, He Wu Immortal Emperor's face turned extremely ugly. This must be related to the Shi clan. We've definitely been discovered. This array isn't simple. We must remain vigilant. Sensing the supreme aura contained in the 12 beams of light, Immortal Emperor Xinghua's body tensed up, and his aura rose to the extreme. Our escape route has been sealed off by this array. It's as if we're in a prison. What exactly is the Shi clan behind this array planning? Immortal Emperor Yihuang frowned. Buzz buzz, just as the immortal emperors were vigilant about the changes in the situation around them, the danger zone suddenly shook. In the next moment, a few figures appeared in the blinding light. The leader was a muscular man with golden hair. Unlike ordinary humans, there were 3 strange black runes on his forehead. His eyes were blood red and flowed with a demonic light. Behind the golden-haired man, there were thousands of figures with similar characteristics. All of them had dark and cold expressions and were expressionless. Shi Tong, it's really you! Immortal Emperor Yan Tian's eyes shone with a cold light when he saw the leader of the Shi clan. A total of 11! There's even an 8-star Immortal Emperor! Shi Tong ignored Immortal Emperor Yan Tian. His gaze fell on Chu Bei, and he suddenly laughed. With all of you as nourishment, and these 12 Emperor fruit trees, it's enough. It's enough to resurrect the distant ancestor. Nourishment? Resurrect the distant ancestor? What is he talking about? Could it be that we've fallen into his trap? He knew from the beginning that we'd come. We've fallen into his trap. Where did he get the confidence to deal with us? Although he's strong, he should have just entered the 7-star Immortal Emperor stage. Meanwhile, the owner of the All Heavens shop has already entered the 8-star Immortal Emperor stage. Upon hearing Shi Tong's words, the Immortal Emperors under the moon, on the floating island, and in the starry dome Immortal Emperor stage spoke one after another. Chapter 676. The time is ripe. I thank you on behalf of my ancestors for coming. Shi Tong roared with laughter. 105 drops of Genesis heaven power flew out from his body and circled around him, forming an octagon. Shi Tong's hands danced as if he was performing some ancient ritual. Wisps of Genesis heaven power began to seep into the monarch fruit trees. It was also at this moment that the 12 monarch fruit trees emitted a white radiance that connected with each other. Rumble! The next moment, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The 12 beams of light fell and intertwined with each other, forming a light barrier that enveloped Chu Bei, the Moonlight Empress, and the others. In an instant, Undermoon, He Wu, Xingqiong, Hovering Island, and the other immortal emperors' expressions changed drastically. The moment the light barrier formed, they felt an inexplicable suppression on their strength. The originally stable aura gradually became chaotic. What kind of formation is this? What terrified the celestial emperors was that the terrifying light barrier was shrinking at a visible speed, and the pressure on them was increasing. Damn it! He Wu Immortal Emperor shouted. He raised his hand and launched a killing technique at Shi Tong. However, the attack was annihilated by the formation runes on the light barrier before it could touch Shirtong. At the same time, the Moonlight Empress, Celestial Emperor Xingqiong, Celestial Emperor Floating Island, and the other experts also attacked Shirtong with their strongest Emperor techniques. However, the result was the same as Celestial Emperor He Wu. Stop struggling and save your energy. The Emperor formation has been activated. Even a peak 8-star Celestial Emperor will end up like you if they fall into the formation, Shirtong said coldly as he swept his gaze across the Celestial Emperors and the light barrier. Buzz. As time passed, the entire Forbidden Land was shrouded in a layer of misty white light. The light barrier was faint, but it was endless. The light barrier that contained the formation rune's power grew smaller and smaller. The Celestial Emperor's frowns deepened as they circulated their Emperor Chi to resist the formation rune's power. If this continues, we'll be in danger. Immortal Emperor He Wu and the other experts began to look at Chu Bei, waiting for his instructions after their repeated attacks were fruitless. Chu Bei didn't express his opinion. This time, it wasn't that he didn't care, but that he couldn't resist the power of this array pattern. Although the power of the level 22 commodity had not disappeared, and he still had the strength of an 8-star Immortal Emperor, Shirtong was right. Even if an 8-star Immortal Emperor entered the array, the outcome would be no different from an ordinary Immortal Emperor, let alone him. Fellow Taoist Chu, are you unable to break this formation? A deep void gully appeared in the center of the circle formed by the clan slayers, and a pitch-black coffin slowly floated out of the gully. Under the illumination of the white light of the array, the pitch-black coffin lid shone brightly, and strange colors flowed. So many Emperor artifacts! Just how many eras has he been preparing for such a grand scheme? Why haven't I heard about the deeds of the distant ancestor of the clan slayers? The Empress under the moon, Immortal Emperor He Wu, and the other cultivators looked at the countless Emperor artifacts piled up around the pitch-black coffin, and they were all shocked. Any one of the Emperor artifacts was a great temptation to them, but at this moment, these Emperor artifacts were being absorbed by the pitch-black coffin. About those guys before the catastrophe, their deeds have all been erased. Of course, you don't know, Immortal Emperor Yan Tian said faintly. He seemed to know something, but he did not say much. Is the one lying in the coffin the distant ancestor of the clan slayers? Looking at the pitch-black coffin that began to become crystal clear, the group of Immortal Emperors frowned. Distant ancestor, we have prepared a sumptuous meal for you. Please enjoy it. Wake up quickly. When Shirtong said these words, all the clan slayers changed their figures again, and they jumped around the pitch-black coffin while hitting their magic weapons. Is the food he is talking about referring to us? Hearing Shirtong's words, the expressions of the Immortal Emperors under the moon, Xingqiong, and the others changed drastically. They had a bad feeling in their hearts, and they looked at the coffin with vigilance. Chapter 677. Dong Dong Dong. As the Shur clan experts hammered on their artifacts, the sacrificial ceremony seemed to have entered its final stage, and the energy fluctuations on their bodies became increasingly powerful. At the same time, their gazes were firmly locked onto the pitch-black coffin, and their expressions were filled with anticipation, as if they were waiting for the moment when the coffin lid would open. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Finally, accompanied by a low hum, the pitch-black coffin suddenly trembled. Not long after, the coffin lid began to tremble and gradually move. When the first crack appeared, light flowed, and various colors intertwined. Rumble! With a loud bang, the coffin lid was blasted away. At the same time, the hazy sky that was originally illuminated by the light of the monarch fruit trees was instantly dyed blood-red by the colors inside the coffin. Before the group of Immortal Emperors could recover from their shock, the blood-red sky turned pitch black again, as if it was the abyss of hell, giving off a gloomy and terrifying feeling. A huge figure wrapped in black mist flew out of the coffin. This figure did not have any vitality, and its flesh was nowhere to be seen. It was extremely shriveled, and it was not an exaggeration to describe it as a mummy. It only had endless death chi, but these death chi fluctuations gave off a feeling that it was not inferior to source heaven energy. Crack! Accompanied by a crisp sound, the mummy suddenly trembled violently as if it had a life of its own, and the surrounding black mist began to pour into its body. At the same time, the terrifying array formed by the 12 monarch fruit trees and countless emperor artifacts emitted a strange immortal light, and faintly, it began to show signs of merging with the mummy. Soon, the black mist filled with death chi was completely absorbed into the mummy's body. The moment the array's energy was connected, the mummy seemed to be injected with vitality, and a thin layer of flesh and blood covered its body. In the next moment, 2 red lights shot out from its sunken eyes, and its body emitted a series of friction sounds, and a violent and terrifying aura spread out. Under this aura, the group of immortal emperors enveloped by the array's light barrier suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. Shi Tong greets the distant ancestor. Suddenly, all the experts of the Shi clan knelt in the air towards the mummy, and their faces were filled with reverence. Their respectful greetings were filled with excitement and excitement. Did it really succeed? Impossible! How could those who died in the calamity come back to life? Celestial Emperor Yan Tian's eyes narrowed as he looked at the mummy in the sky that was fusing with the power of the formation runes. It was as though he had seen something unbelievable. Yan Tian, what exactly is this so-called calamity? Why can't you survivors tell us? Upon hearing Immortal Emperor Yan Tian's words, Moonlight Empress, Hei Wu Immortal Emperor, and the other experts said, "How long are you going to hide this secret?" The group of celestial emperors was born after the calamity. They had heard about it, but they did not know the details. This was because anyone who knew about that calamity and was still alive was at least at the 7-star realm. If the other party was unwilling to speak, they simply did not have the strength to force the other party to speak. Immortal Emperor Yan Tian ignored the questioning immortal emperors. His eyes were fixed on the mummy, and his face became gloomier and gloomier. This guy's aura is still rising. When will it stop? Moonlight Empress, Hei Wu Immortal Emperor, and the other experts refocused their attention on the mummy when they saw that Immortal Emperor Yan Tian still had no intention of revealing the calamity. Their expressions changed drastically when they sensed the terrifying aura emitted from the mummy. Currently, the pressure from the mummy had far surpassed that of the 8-star realm owner of All Heaven's shop. What was even more terrifying was that the mummy's aura was still rising at a terrifying speed as though there was no limit to it. Roar! At this moment, the mummy looked in the direction of Chu Bei and the others with its blood-red eyes. A roar that sounded like it came from ancient times filled the entire perilous land in an instant, and the terrifying sound waves reverberated in the perilous land. Even with the Emperor Formation's power, some of the sound waves still managed to penetrate the perilous land, causing the Emperor Falling Sea to explode and the waves to soar into the sky. At this moment, the mummy was like a primeval savage beast that had just awakened from a deep sleep. Its roar was filled with heart-palpitating cruelty, brutality, and endless destruction and killing. The source of the roar seemed to represent the most terrifying calamity in the world. This is bad. Immortal Emperor Hei Wu felt a chill run down his spine when he met the mummy's blood-red eyes. Just as he spoke with a trembling voice, one of the mummy's gigantic hands had already reached out. Rumble! The Emperor Formation formed by the 12 monarch fruit trees went berserk the moment the mummy made a move, continuously injecting a terrifying amount of energy into the mummy. The power it's using now all originates from the formation runes. His strength hasn't recovered yet. Immortal Emperor Yan Tian exclaimed, as if he had noticed something. But what difference does it make? Do you have a way to destroy the Emperor Formation? Immortal Emperor Yi Huang asked, glancing at the mummy and the 12 monarch fruit trees with a gloomy expression. Whoosh! On the battlefield, the mummy that had become one with the Emperor Formation let out a low roar again. Then, several dazzling threads shot out of its body and penetrated the light shield that sealed Yan Tian, Hei Wu, and the other immortal emperors. The immortal emperor's expressions changed drastically when they heard a strange, buzzing sound. They could feel the power in their bodies being wildly absorbed by the dazzling threads. This is bad. It's devouring us. The immortal emperors came to their senses and used their emperor force to resist the suction force of the dazzling threads. However, what made them feel helpless was that even if they used their strongest killing techniques, they could not affect the dazzling threads at all. Their essences were still being devoured. The mummy, on the other hand, was nourished by their essences. The mummy's shriveled body seemed to have flesh and blood, and it was growing stronger. We did it! We did it! With these guys as nourishment, the venerable ancestor will be revived. As long as the venerable ancestor is revived, we can return to our clan. The immortal emperors became more and more excited as they looked at the mummy's body that was gradually filling up. Is there really no other way? Am I going to die here? Immortal Emperor He Wu cast his monarch arts at the mummy. His eyes were filled with reluctance. Fellow Taoist Chu, I'm afraid you also expected this result, right? In the end, you've become the nourishment for the resurrection of others. How ridiculous! The Empress under the moon looked at Chu Bei and said self-deprecatingly. Chu Bei did not reply. At this moment, his expression was solemn. Even with his strength of the 8 stars realm, he could not stop the venerable ancestor from using the Emperor formation's power to attack. Just like the other immortal emperors, his power was also being devoured. Chapter 678. Along with the passage of time, the auras of Chu Bei and the others became chaotic, violent, and uncontrollable. The mummy could no longer be called a mummy. It had become a huge body of flesh and blood, and the deathly aura in its body began to be replaced by the aura of life. Look! I can see some of it. What's going on? All the energy is converging in one place. At the same time, the projection of the danger zone in the sky above the heavens was no longer chaotic. Instead, it revealed a total of 12 figures. One of the figures was particularly special. He was like a black hole, crazily devouring the power of the other 11 figures. Compared to ordinary cultivators, the quasi-immortal emperors on the Star Ocean Square, and even the immortal emperors on the round platform instantly confirmed the identity of the 11 figures when they saw this scene. What the hell happened to them? Who is that figure? Even the 8 stars realm all-heaven shop master is no match for him? Is there such an existence in the Sher clan? Damn it! It would be great if we could find out what's going on inside. The limitless immortal emperor, the Genesis primordial spirit, and the other immortal emperors had grave expressions. Their divine thoughts could not penetrate into the land of extremity, so they could only look at the scene in the sky like the other experts. On the other side. Under the irresistible suction force, He Wu, Undermoon, and the other immortal emperors began to cry out in pain, and their expressions were already very distorted. Gradually, their emperor weapons appeared, and due to the loss of power, cracks began to faintly appear. Chu Bei's expression was not good either. Just as he was cursing the system interface in his sea of consciousness suddenly trembled and shook. Then, a wisp of clear light spread out from the interface and swept through his body. It was also at this moment that the force of the formation pattern that was sucking him disappeared in an instant, and his weak body became full again. He Wu, Undermoon, and the other immortal emperors seemed to have noticed the change in Chu Bei. Just as they were about to speak, they saw something like a heavenly book fly out from between his eyebrows. This heavenly book was very thin, with only a few pages, and it was still transparent. Of course, Chu Bei recognized the so-called heavenly book at a glance. It was the system interface in his sea of consciousness. Buzz buzz, just as Chu Bei was confused, a mini chubby baby suddenly appeared on the top of the system interface. The chubby boy was holding a golden disc in his left hand and a paintbrush in his right. Swish! Swish! The chubby boy held the paintbrush and waved it on the golden disc. When he finished the last stroke, a crisp clanking sound could be heard. The golden disc trembled violently, and a giant net shot out from the mouth of the bowl towards the 12 monarch fruit trees. The giant net released a lustrous light. It was as if it could naturally restrain the power of the formation. In the blink of an eye, the power of the formation collapsed wherever it passed. Whoosh! The 12 monarch fruit trees acted as if they were facing a great enemy. Their branches and leaves swayed crazily. At this moment, the originally stable monarch formation seemed to have its foundation shaken and began to sway. Chi-la! The chubby boy waved his brush again, as if injecting new strength into the giant net. A moment later, the giant net enveloped the 12 monarch fruit trees, uprooted them, and threw them into the bowl. The moment the 12 monarch fruit trees were sucked into the golden bowl, the terrifying power of the array runes in this danger zone disappeared. Bang! When the monarch formation disappeared, the aura of the Shur clan's distant ancestor plummeted to rock bottom. His blood-red eyes dimmed, and his flesh and blood began to shrivel up. After destroying the monarch formation formed by the 12 monarch fruit trees, the chubby boy glanced at Chu Bei, put away the paintbrush and golden disc, and entered the system interface. A moment later, the system interface disappeared from Chu Bei's sight and returned to his sea of consciousness. From the moment Chu Bei's group was on the brink of despair to the moment the system interface left his sea of consciousness and the chubby boy appeared, all of this happened in the blink of an eye. Impossible! Distant ancestor! It's okay, you'll definitely wake up. The ritual won't stop. It won't fail. The leader of the Shur clan, Shur Tong, muttered to himself as if he had suffered a heavy blow when he saw the monarch formation disappear and the shriveled, motionless corpse. Then he let out a roar that was filled with unwillingness. He could not accept that the plan he had prepared for hundreds of millions of years had gone down the drain. Just when he was about to succeed, it failed at the last moment. Where did the monarch formation go? What was that formation just now? It's him. It must have something to do with him. The group of experts from the Shur clan came back to their senses and looked at Chu Bei with eyes full of hatred. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they looked like they wanted nothing more than to tear Chu Bei into pieces. The Moonlight Empress, the Hei Wu Immortal Emperor, the Desolation Immortal Emperor, the Xingqiong Immortal Emperor, and the other experts fixed their gazes on Chu Bei. Their expressions were somewhat stiff. The monarch formation was destroyed. The restriction from before has disappeared. What did the All-Heaven Shop Master do just now? What's with the heavenly book and the little boy? What other secrets is he hiding? The group of immortal emperors regained their senses as they looked at Chu Bei and sucked in a breath of cold air. Chapter 679. At the same time, in the outside world. How did the situation turn around all of a sudden? What happened just now? The projection of the danger zone in the sky became clear again, but when they saw the battlefield clearly, it was already the scene of Chu Bei and the other celestial emperors slaughtering their enemies. As for how Chu Bei and the others had gotten out of their predicament, they had no idea. Bang! 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 Various terrifying celestial emperor attacks were performed on the battlefield. Amidst the explosions, more and more experts from the Shur clan died. After an unknown period of time, Shur Tong's huge body was cut in half by a shocking 5-colored sword ray. The situation is not good for us. Retreat! After being killed by Chu Bei, Shur Tong's aura was getting weaker and weaker. He began to realize the current situation and gave the order to retreat. However, how could Chu Bei and the others let the people from the Shur clan leave? They immediately worked together to seal the void of the danger zone. This battle could be said to be a fight to the death. After about 15 minutes, except for Shur Tong, who was extremely weak, the rest of the experts from the Shur clan were killed by the Empress Under the Moon and the others. Boom! Just as the Empress Under the Moon, Hei Wu, and the other celestial emperors were about to help Chu Bei, Shur Tong's body was once again engulfed by the 5-colored sword ray. Chi! This time, Shirtong's body did not reassemble. Instead, it began to dissipate. The source heaven power turned into a rain of light and disappeared bit by bit. As for the mummy, Chu Bei threw it back into the coffin and kept it in the seed world. Annihilation of the Shi clan, marked mission completed. Reward issued, 150 drops of source heaven power. When Shirtong died, the system's voice sounded in Chu Bei's sea of consciousness. At this moment, the level 22 commodity power that Chu Bei had used had reached the end of its effective time. It's over. The Moonlight Empress, He Wu Immortal Emperor, and the others glanced at each other and exchanged glances. Then, they cupped their fists at Chu Bei, as if thanking Chu Bei for saving them. Remember what I said earlier? Chu Bei nodded at Undermoon, He Wu, and the other immortal emperors. Hearing Chu Bei's words, the group of immortal emperors nodded. They knew what Chu Bei was referring to. It was also after witnessing this scene that they became even more respectful towards Chu Bei. Putting aside the fact that the other party was hiding his strength, just the fact that he was at the 8th star ascension stage meant that he wasn't someone that they could afford to offend. In the face of such an existence, even though they were both immortal emperors, they could only befriend him. They could not afford to offend him. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian stared at Chu Bei and asked tentatively, "Are you from before the catastrophe?" The other party's strength was terrifying, and he had appeared out of nowhere without any information about his origin. These 2 points pointed to the supreme existence before the catastrophe. Chu Bei glanced at Immortal Emperor Yen Tian and smiled. He did not answer or ask further. In his opinion, even if he asked, the other party would not reveal anything about the so-called catastrophe. In that case, it was better to leave the other party with some suspense and maintain some mystery. After everything calmed down, Chu Bei and the others left the perilous place. Look! The immortal emperors are back. The Shi clan has really been annihilated. Looking at Chu Bei and the others who had returned to the round platform, the experts on the Star Ocean Square exclaimed, "Brother Yen Tian, what happened to you? Before this, we clearly saw a mysterious figure devouring your origin energy. How did you escape?" Limitless Immortal Emperor came to Immortal Emperor Yen Tian and asked. Immortal Emperor Yen Tian shook his head and did not say much. Almost at the same time, Moonlight Empress, He Wu Immortal Emperor, and the others were also questioned by the other immortal emperors, but like Immortal Emperor Yen Tian, they did not reveal anything. The Shi clan has been annihilated. Participants will receive 10 drops of Source Heaven power. Buzz! Just as the experts were discussing intensely about the land of extremists, a series of buzzing sounds could be heard. In the next moment, the same line of blood-red words appeared in every corner of the high heavens. Among them, the blood-red words above the Star Ocean Square were the most eye-catching. Then, the blood-red words turned into 110 drops of Source Heaven power and flew to the 11 immortal emperors who had entered the battlefield. Great! With this Source Heaven power, as long as I have enough time, I will definitely be able to cross the 3rd stage and enter the 4th star stage. Moonlight Empress, He Wu Immortal Emperor, and the other experts were excited when they received the 10 drops of Source Heaven power and sensed the energy waves within them. As for Immortal Emperor Yen Tian and Chu Bei, they just casually put away the Source Heaven power as if it was not tempting to them. Would the owner of the All Heavens shop be willing to join us? Just when the cultivators thought that the decree of the Zero organization would disappear along with the mission, they were shocked to find that the blood-red words changed again. What does this mean? Is the Zero faction inviting the owner of the All Heavens shop? What kind of people does this Zero organization have? This is the first time in hundreds of millions of years that they have invited someone to join them. Looking at the blood-red words in the sky, all the powerhouses opened their mouths wide and were dumbfounded. The Zero faction invited the owner of the All Heavens shop to join them. In my memory, he is the only one in the high heavens. Even Immortal Emperor Long Quan, the Divine Tao Immortal Emperor, and Immortal Emperor Qian Sang have never been invited by the Zero faction. In the entire Chaos Great Heavens, there are less than 10 people who have been invited by the Zero faction. What did the owner of the All Heavens shop do? How did he make the mysterious Zero faction extend an olive branch? The limitless immortal emperor, the Genesis primordial spirit, and the other immortal emperors stared at the blood-red words in the sky in shock. On the other hand, the flowing sky immortal emperor, the undermoon empress, the Hei Wu immortal emperor, and the other experts who had entered the land of extremists were very relieved. For a moment, whether it was the immortal emperors or other experts, everyone's eyes were fixed on Chu Bei, waiting for his reply. Chu Bei smiled faintly, then waved his sleeve, and a new line of colorful words appeared under the blood-red words. I have no such thoughts. What? The owner of the All Heavens shop has rejected the invitation of the Zero faction? No one has ever dared to reject the decree of the Zero faction so directly. Will the Zero faction punish the owner of the All Heavens shop? When the experts on the Star Ocean Square saw Chu Bei's reply, their pupils suddenly shrank, and they stared at Chu Bei in surprise. However, just when they thought that the Zero faction would take measures against Chu Bei, an even more shocking scene happened. The blood-red words appeared again. As long as you have any thoughts, our door is always open for you. A new line of blood-red words appeared for a few seconds and disappeared. Looking at the empty sky, the group of experts came back to their senses and looked at each other, speechless. They never expected that the Zero faction would not only not punish a person who had violated the decree, but also wanted to befriend him. In hundreds of millions of years, this was the first time someone had received such courtesy from the Zero faction. Chapter 680. The owner of the All Heavens shop must have his own uniqueness. I didn't expect even the Zero faction to value you so much. In my memory, apart from Lord Yuan, you're the second person to reject the Zero faction's invitation and come out unscathed. An ethereal voice sounded, and a silver-haired old man dressed in the Origin Sky Pavilion's robes arrived in front of Chu Bei. The old man was the pavilion master of the Origin Sky Pavilion's branch in the high heavens. His name was Lan Hui, and he was an 8-star immortal emperor expert. Could the All Heavens shop sect master have reached the level of Origin Emperor? Upon hearing Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's words, the immortal emperors on the round platform sized up Chu Bei again. They were clearly paying more attention to him. Chu Bei smiled at Immortal Emperor Lan Hui in response and said, "The competition between the disciples hasn't ended yet. Everyone should focus on the competition." Hearing Chu Bei's words, the group of immortal emperors fell silent. Then, they stopped talking about Chu Bei and turned their attention back to the battlefield. Battlefield 3. In the vast starry sky, a surging river of stars with the power of time flowed, and countless chaotic mountains bobbed up and down. A man wrapped in flames wandered among the river of stars. From time to time, terrifying quasi-immortal emperors would come to attack him, but they were all suppressed and sent out of the battlefield in the end. Participant: Shaoyan Emperor Province, All Heavens Shop, Emperor Province Faction, All Heavens Shop Points, 8666 Ranking, 1 World Battlefield, Number 00003. Shaoyan looked at the information in his palm with a faint smile on his face as he continued to walk through the river of stars. Where did this guy come from? Looking at his strength, he's definitely a great perfection quasi-immortal emperor. How come I've never heard of a great perfection quasi-immortal emperor before? It's as if he appeared out of thin air. This shouldn't be. In Battlefield 3, some 8th-layer quasi-immortal emperors were hiding in the dark, watching Shaoyan's back warily as they discussed spiritedly. Battlefield 21. Fellow Taoist, you're really lucky to have become the 300th person I've met. If I send you out, my points will exceed 500. In the boundless sea of stars, a man in gray robes had his hands behind his back. He seemed to be flying aimlessly. There was a resplendent galaxy revolving behind him. Endless light atoms intertwined with each other, and each atom contained an extremely terrifying amount of energy. However, at this moment, a 6th heavenly layer quasi-immortal emperor instantly appeared in front of the gray-robed man. His gaze was as if he was looking at his prey. Chen Nan glanced indifferently at the person in front of him. Without saying anything, he struck out with his palm. The sixth heaven quasi-immortal emperor's expression changed the moment he sensed Chen Nan's energy fluctuation. He knew that he had kicked an iron board and was filled with regret. However, just as he was about to flee, he suddenly realized that his body had been sealed. Looking at the huge palm that was condensed from resplendent light atoms getting closer and closer, sensing the might of the palm, the pupils of the sixth heaven quasi-immortal emperor contracted abruptly, and a sense of fear rose within him. Fortunately, the strange energy that was everywhere in this world battlefield immediately wrapped around the gray-robed man, blocking Chen Nan's palm for him. Following that, accompanied by an explosion, the sixth heaven quasi-immortal emperor was wrapped up by the strange energy and disappeared. At this moment, a warm feeling spread from Chen Nan's palm. His points also increased by 499. Participant, Chen Nan Emperor Province, All Heavens Shop, Emperor Province Affiliated Power, All Heavens Shop Points, 700 Ranking, 1 World Battlefield, Number 00021, not only Xiao Yan, Chen Nan, Tang San, Yi Fan, Shihao, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, San Monk, Golden Cicada, Ao Lai, and the others also firmly occupied the first place in their world battlefield. As long as there were powerful beings who targeted them, they would be blasted out of the world battlefield within moments. As for Linli, Luo Feng, and Jun Moxie, due to their cultivation levels, no matter how careful they were still sent out of the world battlefield by other powerful beings in the end. Master, your disciples have embarrassed you. Not to mention first place, we didn't even enter the top 1,000. Linli and Luo Feng stood side by side in front of Chu Bei, their faces apologetic. Don't worry. You all have only cultivated for a short period of time. For this reason, I let you all participate in this battle just to let you all experience it. Chu Bei smiled as he looked at Linli, Luo Feng, and Jun Moxie. In the next battle between forces, you all will definitely not disappoint me. Hearing this, Linli and Luo Feng looked at each other and nodded heavily. When the time comes, we will definitely not disappoint you, Master. Fellow Taoist Chu, are those two also your personal disciples? They are far from that Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, and the others. The Genesis primordial spirit sized up Linli and Luo Feng, then looked at Chu Bei and said. Chu Bei looked indifferently at the Genesis primordial spirit. He only smiled and did not respond. Because of Chu Bei, the other immortal emperors present could not help but size up Linli and Luo Feng. After finding out their cultivation level, they no longer paid any more attention to them, and their attention returned to the world battlefield. At this moment, the most attention was paid to the world battlefields of 2021 and 1949, where Hong Jun and Han Kun were. Looking carefully, there was no one else in these two world battlefields other than Hong Jun and Han Kun. In other words, these two had already cleared all their opponents in their respective battlefields. Without a doubt, they were the first place. Hong Jun and Han Kun are indeed great beings who have already stepped into the immortal emperor realm. The battle hasn't ended yet, but they have already cleared the battlefield. Everything is going according to plan. After all, they are now immortal emperors. As long as they want to, they can establish a new emperor-level force at any time. From the looks of it, among all the disciples, only the two of them are at the immortal emperor realm. However, did you notice that the first-place winners in the battlefields of 3, 21, and 132 all look very unfamiliar? Yes, I also have the same question. From their strength, they have already reached the peak of the half-immortal emperor realm. But why have we never seen such people before? These guys should be hidden by the emperor-level forces. When the results are announced, we will know which forces these guys are from. In the Star Ocean Plaza, a group of great beings watched the world battlefield while discussing. Dang! As time passed, finally a bell rang. This meant that the first round of the competition between the disciples had ended. 10,000 world battlefields collapsed, and the great beings within were drawn into a brand new world. There were exactly 10,000 of them. After the crowd of spectators swept their gazes across the 10,000 great beings who had advanced, their gazes immediately shifted to the host of the Origin Sky Pavilion, Immortal Emperor Lan Hui. Everyone, the first round of the elimination competition has ended. Next, I will announce the first place winners of each battlefield. As everyone waited, Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's voice resounded throughout the heavens, filling every corner. Chapter 681. Battlefield 00001. The winner is Ji Lei, belonging to Dragon Spring Sect, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 00002. The winner is Fan Quan, belonging to Heaven Spreading Sword Sect, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 00003. The winner is Xiao Yan, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 00004. The winner is Bai Mu, belonging to Moon Valley, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 00021. The winner is Qin Nan, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 00132. The winner is Tang San, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 00485. The winner is Yi Fan, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 00666. The winner is Shi Hao, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 01949. The winner is Han Kun, belonging to Genesis Immortal Sect, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 02021. The winner is Hong Jun, belonging to Genesis Immortal Sect, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 02222. The winner is Sun Wukong, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 03434. The winner is Zhu Beiji, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 04567. The winner is San Monk, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 05555. The winner is Golden Cicada, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 06900. The winner is Ao Lai, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. Battlefield 09874. The winner is Ancient Dragon Phoenix, belonging to All Heaven's Commerce, cultivation at the Great Circle of Half-Immortal Emperor. On the round platform, Immortal Emperor Lan Hui announced the first place of each battlefield. Meanwhile, at this moment, the audience was already in an uproar. How is this possible? Those perfect half-immortal emperors that have never been seen before actually all came from All Heaven's Commerce. Isn't there only Sun Wukong, the primordial dragon phoenix, and the rest? How did another 5 peak stage quasi-immortal emperors appear all of a sudden? We know far too little about the All Heaven's shop. In that case, doesn't that mean the All Heaven's shop already has 11 peak stage quasi-immortal emperors? But the All Heaven's shop only has 11 shops in the top 10,000. Haha, you're really short-sighted. Right now, it was only the elimination round. The only ones who could truly affect the rankings were the top 100. The 7th heavenly layer, 8th heavenly layer, and even the 9th heavenly layer were nothing but cannon fodder. To put it bluntly, the final battle is a battle between peak stage quasi-immortal emperors. In this elimination round, the All Heavens shop had a total of 13 participants. 2 of them were eliminated, so 11 advanced. And these 11 people were all at the Great Perfection Immortal Emperor realm. In other words, they are all existences that can participate in the final 100 battles. Looking at the results of the elimination round that were revealed in the sky, not only the experts in the square, but even the immortal emperors on the round platform also had some surprise in their eyes when they saw the names of Xiao Yan, Chen Nan, Tang San, and the others. Their eyes were filled with dense shock. Brother Chu, it seems like you're not the only one who hid it well. Your disciples also hid it well. If it wasn't for this battle, I'm afraid we wouldn't have known that you had so many peak-stage quasi-immortal emperors. The Moonlight Empress glared at Chu Bei. Fellow Taoist Chu, don't tell me these 5 are also your personal disciples? Immortal Emperor Xing Qiong asked tentatively. Chu Bei smiled knowingly and nodded slightly, which could be considered as a reply. Upon hearing Chu Bei's words, not only Immortal Emperor Xing Qiong, but the other Immortal Emperors were also shocked. They also had peak-stage quasi-immortal emperors in their sections. However, most of these peak-stage quasi-immortal emperors were not their disciples. They were invited to their sects with great temptation. After all, even if they were immortal emperors, it was very difficult to nurture a peak-stage quasi-immortal emperor. Of course, this was also one of the reasons why they admired Chu Bei. Other than the ancient dragon Phoenix, he had nurtured 10 peak-stage quasi-immortal emperors. Thinking of this, the immortal emperors couldn't help but look at Linli and Luo Feng. Their expressions became serious. Perhaps in the near future these 2 little guys would also enter the ranks of peak-stage quasi-immortal emperors. No matter how many there are, they still haven't entered the true immortal emperor realm. They still have a long way to go. At this moment, a discordant voice sounded. Hearing this, the immortal emperors looked at the Genesis primordial spirit. Thinking that he had nurtured 2 peak-stage quasi-immortal emperors, he was indeed not inferior to the leader of the All-Heavens shop in terms of nurturing disciples. Chu Bei smiled and continued to ignore the Genesis primordial spirit. Instead, he looked at Immortal Emperor Lan Hui and waited for the next round to begin. Little guy, you're quite talkative. Could it be that you want to spar with me? Chu Bei looked at the Genesis primordial spirit, and his gaze hardened. This time, I won't hold back. Death is inevitable. Hearing Chu Bei's calm and smiling words, the Genesis primordial spirit's expression immediately turned ugly, but he didn't reply. He just turned his head and no longer looked at Chu Bei. Everyone, harmony is the most important thing. Let's take a break. The second round of the competition will begin soon. Sensing the abnormal atmosphere, Immortal Emperor Lan Hui, who was the host, hurriedly spoke to ease the tension. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Chu Bei's gaze moved away from the Genesis primordial spirit. Although he was slightly dissatisfied with the Genesis primordial spirit's attitude, the other party was just envious and jealous. At least in the beginning, he had only imprisoned Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, and the other 4 and hadn't caused any harm to them. Later on, even when he attacked him, he held back at the beginning and just wanted to punish him slightly. For this reason, Chu Bei only spoke to scare the Genesis primordial spirit and make him shut up. Of course, what he wanted to do the most was to properly ravage the Genesis primordial spirit. Unfortunately, his level 22 commodity had expired, and he had returned to the strength of a 3-star immortal emperor. It would be too much of a waste to use 150 drops of Source Heaven power just to punish the Genesis primordial spirit. As for the second round of the competition, the top 100 out of 10,000 people would be chosen. Unlike the first round of the competition, there were only 100 battlefields this time, and each battlefield had 100 people. There were also differences in the rules. The first round of the competition used a point system, which could be said to be extremely chaotic. The second round of the competition was relatively more orderly. To be precise, it should be to avoid a lot of trouble for the strong people. In these 100 battlefields, there would be a strength ranking for each battlefield. As for the initial ranking, it was arranged by the Origin Sky Pavilion according to the cultivation level of the 100 people from 1 to 100. Similar to the first round of the competition, this so-called equal distribution was still extremely fair, and there wouldn't be a situation where great perfection quasi-immortal emperors met immortal emperors in the same battlefield. After all, There were less than 100 great perfection quasi-immortal emperors among all the applicants. Chapter 682. After the initial rankings were set, those within 10 places of each other could issue challenges. Once the initiator defeated the challenged, the initiator's ranking would replace the challenger's ranking, while the challenger's ranking would drop by 1. In the end, the ranking would no longer change. Everyone, you all know the rules of the second round. Then, let's directly begin. 15 minutes later, Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's powerful and resounding voice sounded in the battlefield. Following Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's voice, 100 world battlefields appeared in the empty sky. At the center of each world battlefield was a large and clear ranking, flickering with brilliant radiance. Xiaoyan, Chennan, Tangsan, Yifan, Shihao, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, San Monk, Golden Cicada, Ao Lai, Ancient Dragon Phoenix, these 11 individuals were in different battlefields, similarly ranked at the top. As soon as Immortal Emperor Lan Hui announced the start of the competition, there were people who issued challenges in these 100 battlefields. At first, Xiaoyan, Chennan, and the others didn't issue any challenges, but when one of the 10 strongest issued a challenge, the others also became restless. After all, in their opinion, even if they failed to challenge the number 1, their ranking wouldn't change. However, reality was that when they failed their challenge, their strength would be restricted by this world battlefield. This led to them being unable to display their most powerful killing techniques when challenged by those below. When they discovered this, the experts who weren't confident didn't dare casually challenge Xiaoyan, Chennan, these half-immortal emperors at the consummate level. As for Hongjun and Hankuin, these 2 immortal emperors, no one issued a challenge to them from start to finish. 2 hours later, the ranking of the 100 battlefields no longer changed. Compared to the initial ranking, the changes weren't that great. The third round is finally about to begin. The following competition is going to be interesting. Especially the top 20, it's directly related to the ranking of the power rankings. Needless to say, the top 2 will definitely be monopolized by Hongjun and Hankun. As for the 3rd to 20th, it's hard to say. After all, most of these people have already reached the consummate level, it's just a matter of whose Dao is stronger. When Immortal Emperor Lan Hui announced the end of the second round, the experts and immortal emperors in Starsea Plaza immediately became spirited. In the third round, which was also the top 100 battle, the first place of the 100 battlefields in the second round would be selected to compete. The rules were very simple. It was the most common 2-on-1 sparring match. From the top 100 to the top 64, from the top 64 to the top 32, from the top 32 to the top 16, and from the top 16 to the top 8. Finally, it was the top 4, and the competition for the championship. Little fellows, you are all cornerstones of the high heavens. The following competition will not only determine the ranking of the forces you represent, but it will also be a battle of the best. In the process of fighting each other, I hope that all of you will be able to comprehend something. If you can use this opportunity to break through, that would naturally be the best. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's gaze swept across Xiaoyan, Chennan, and the rest of the 100 people. There's still time. Prepare yourselves and prepare for the battle of the pinnacle. When Lan Hui finished speaking, the 100 experts looked at each other and disappeared almost at the same time, returning to their respective positions. At this moment, Zhu Bei's position attracted the most attention. Although there were 2 immortal emperors among the disciples of the Genesis primordial spirit, there was a huge difference in the number of perfected immortal emperors compared to the all-heavens shop. Among the 39 emperor-level forces, most of them only had 2 perfected quasi-immortal emperors. Some of the lower-ranked emperor-level forces didn't even have any perfected quasi-immortal emperors. Looking at the all-heavens shop, there were a total of 11 perfected quasi-immortal emperors. Even the Dragon Spring Sect, Thousand Green Island, and Divine Path Mountain were envious of such a number. Master, the 2 immortal emperors from the Genesis Immortal Sect aren't easy to deal with. Xiao Yan, Chen Nan, Tang San Yifan, and the rest stood side by side in front of Chu Bei and bowed to him. It's okay. Go ahead and fight. Leave the rest to me. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. Since the All Heaven shop is participating, we must fight for the first place. We can only be the first place. Yes, master. We will do our best. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Xiao Yan, Chen Nan, Tang San Yifan, and the rest looked at each other and nodded heavily. Time's up. Participants, please get on the stage. Half a quarter of an hour later, accompanied by a loud rumbling sound, a huge fighting stage appeared above the Star Sea Plaza. Unlike the previous two rounds, this last round wasn't held in the world battlefield but directly above the Star Ocean Plaza. Although the battle stage didn't look big, it was mysterious and seemed to be divided into several areas. Each area could also be used as a battle arena. To be able to participate in this last round, your cultivation has almost reached the peak of the quasi-immortal Emperor realm. There's not much difference between you and your opponents. It's not very likely that one side will accidentally kill the other. Therefore, you can hold nothing back in the process of battle. To put it bluntly, your opponent will only be seriously injured in the worst-case scenario. If that kind of situation really happens, I'll make a move immediately. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's gaze swept across the 100 experts who had appeared on the battle stage. His powerful voice spread throughout the entire Star Ocean Plaza. Start choosing your opponents. As Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's voice fell, 100 balls of light appeared above the battle stage. The 100 experts who were familiar with the rules grabbed towards the 100 balls of light at the same time. Among them, only 50 balls of light contained strange characters. As for the 50 people who drew the strange words, they would be randomly drawn again to choose their opponents. Floating Island Sex Lu Ru against Genesis Immortal Sex Hong Jun. Moonlight Gu Muhui against All Heavens Shops Xiao Yin. Dragon Spring Sex by Ma against All Heavens Shops Shi Hao. Hei Wushan and Yu Quan against All Heavens Shops Yi Fan. Soon after, the names of the opponents for the first round were finalized. Sigh, why is my luck so bad? Encountering Hong Jun in the first round, there's no hope at all. Aren't we the same? My opponent is Hun Kun, an immortal emperor that's hard to reach. Just brace yourself and go through the motions. Even Sect Master can understand us. It's really too difficult. Their opponents were the two quasi-immortal emperors of Hong Jun and Han Kun. After sighing, they helplessly flew into the area where Hong Jun and Han Kun were. The battle came quickly and ended even faster. Perhaps because they knew the outcome, the two of them didn't have the heart to continue fighting. When they found that their strongest killing moves were easily blocked by Hong Jun and Han Kun, they directly chose to surrender. Compared to the two battlefields of Hong Jun and Han Kun, the other battlefields were much more intense. All kinds of terrifying emperor techniques emerged one after another. Great Tao profundities burst forth, and terrifying auras spread out, carrying the power to destroy heaven and earth. Chapter 683. Apart from Hong Jun and Han Kun's battles, the other battles that drew the most attention were none other than the battles between the disciples of All Heaven's Commerce. Perhaps because of how mysterious All Heaven's Commerce was, the spectating experts, including the immortal emperors, were all extremely curious as to just how far they could reach. If one were to talk about the battles between All Heaven's Commerce's disciples, then it would be Shi Hao's battlefield. The one fighting against Shi Hao was a large man, his head of scarlet-red long hair scattering down, his eyes terrifyingly sharp. This was Dragon Spring Sex half-immortal Emperor Great Circle, his name by Ma. Ever since he stepped on the path of cultivation, he swept through all of his peers, his talent terrifyingly great. At the same time, he was also recognized as the most powerful candidate to take that step in the past million years. Right now, he was in the middle of the battlefield, primal chaos swirling about, great Tao aura covering the stars, as if it could suppress the heavens of endless time. You are quite strong. Bai Ma gave Shi Hao an indifferent look. When his cold voice sounded, his large hand directly slapped down. Hong Long! Bai Ma possessed terrifyingly exuberant blood energy, vaguely carrying a trace of true immortal emperor aura. With just a single palm, their battlefield seemed to have become still. Worthy of being Dragon Spring Sect's chief disciple. It is rumored that he corroborated the Tao through the profound mysteries of time and space. Now, it seems like it really isn't fake. While looking at the battlefield that immediately seemed to have entered a deathly stillness, the expressions of the spectating experts trembled. Only, when they saw that terrifying giant hand carrying unmatched might about to smash into Shi Hao's body, they saw a massive pill-shaped object appear out of nowhere, facing it, instantly blasting that giant hand apart. All Heaven's Commerce's Shi Hao's methods are also quite terrifying. When facing Bai Ma, he isn't at a disadvantage at all. When they saw Shi Hao's divine ability, the spectating experts spoke out again, their faces revealing looks of disbelief. Hong Long Long. Under the rumbling sounds of continuous clashes, Bai Ma's figure continuously changed, all types of emperor methods appearing one after another. His head of long red hair was like fiery light, dancing about, releasing dazzling symbols, his aura oppressive. Later on, his body expanded once again. Surging stellar rivers revolved around him, and a terrifying abnormal phenomenon took place. It was because he knew Shi Hao's strength, so he didn't hold back anymore, directly displaying his most powerful state. I already can't remember how long it has been since I fought to my heart's content. Bai Ma's sharp eyes looked at Shi Hao indifferently like lightning. Is that strange thing your Tao to corroborate? Or is it the inheritance of your all-heavens shop? Your senior and junior brothers seem to have them too. As soon as he finished speaking, the white horse attacked again. A blood-red furnace flew out from his palm. It flowed with blinding light and spewed out endless flames of the great path, burning the starry sky. One could even vaguely see layers of strange phenomena within these flames. It was a record of his entire life, a record of how he had swept through all his enemies since his birth. What was frightening was that the moment the white horse took action, the great river of time appeared around his body, burning fiercely, time fragments swirling about. You're also very strong. You can be my practice partner. The corners of Shi Hao's mouth curved into a smile, and the battle intent in his eyes became even more intense. The tremor fruit circled around behind him, releasing a terrifying trembling force. Practice? Aren't you a little too arrogant? Don't you understand that there's always someone better than you? The white horse shouted. In the same cultivation realm, all Heaven's Shop's disciples are unmatched. Shi Hao's powerful voice resounded through the battlefield, his face full of confidence. Dang! When he heard Shi Hao's words, the white horse revealed a look of disdain. He directly held the blood-red furnace, slowly moving above the great river of time. Time fragments danced about, terrifying beyond compare. Endless great Tao symbol light flames were released. In the instant they clashed, the area on the fighting platform almost caved in. Dazzling light of the immortal Tao wrapped around them. Dragon Spring Sect's white horse has been angered. I fear that the battle between the two of them will end soon. While looking at that terrifying great battle, the spectating experts in Starsea Plaza sucked in a cold breath of air. Fortunately, this battle stage had the support of a high star-level immortal Emperor's source energy, or else the entire Starsea Mountains would face a terrifying disaster. Just get lost in time. On the battlefield, the white horse shouted. He used the most powerful time-secret method. He cut open his wrist, dazzling blood splashing out, entering the blood-red furnace. In that instant, a wave of time force carried time symbols, carrying the white horse's source essence blood, suppressing towards Shi Hao. At the same cultivation realm, all Heaven's Shop's disciples fear nothing. Similar words were spoken from Shi Hao's mouth again. Then, his hands moved, resonating with the void force, sweeping out endless white radiance, blasting through the time force, directly targeting the white horse. With a hong sound, the void force and time force collided, great Tao symbols flying about. At first, the White Horse's time force could still contend against Shao's void force. However, soon after, the void force erupted with terrifying divine radiance again, instantly erasing the time force. It arrived in front of the White Horse, wishing to suppress it. When it sensed the void force that smashed over, the White Horse roared out. All of its source essence blood seeped out from the surface of its body, burning fiercely. The other party was far more powerful than it imagined. It had no choice but to stake it all. As its source essence blood burned, the White Horse's aura rose again. With a wave of its hand, the heavens trembled, time destroyed. Time was like a sea, rushing over. Your Tao is still not mature enough. Shao was submerged in the sea of time. One could vaguely see his hair turning white, body starting to age. However, his expression didn't change, not showing the slightest bit of fear. Arrogant! The White Horse shouted, all of its body's essence blood burning fiercely. It was wrapped within blood-red flames. As the cold voice sounded, the blood-colored furnace appeared in its hands again, becoming more and more terrifying. It released chaotic energy, swirling with time ripples. However, when it looked like the blood-colored furnace was about to smash into Shao's head, his white hair immediately became black again, his skin also instantly returning to its original state, as if the time force disappeared from his body. It's over. When his calm voice sounded, Shao's entire body was wrapped within white radiance. Then, his body seemed to have merged into the void, mysterious and unfathomable, producing endless great Tao profound mysteries. A sky-shocking noise sounded, irregular scenes appearing one after another. Dang! Shao and the pill-shaped object behind him became one, 3 little figures appearing above his head. He used the embodiment transformation great method, deriving all types of unmatched divine abilities. In the end, it mixed together with the power of trembling, first destroying the blood-colored furnace, and then fiercely smashing into the White Horse's chest. In that instant, the White Horse's chest was penetrated, staggering backwards. The raging flames of the source essence blood around its body were extinguished. How could this be? The White Horse roared, and its roar was filled with unwillingness. It couldn't accept this result. Its most powerful attack after igniting its essence blood actually couldn't injure the other party. Before this, he boasted that he was undefeated in the same cultivation realm. After endless years, he had indeed never been defeated in the same cultivation realm. Yet today, even after igniting his source essence blood, he still couldn't injure the other party in the slightest. Moreover, his opponent was someone he didn't have any information about before, someone who seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. All Heaven's Commerce's Shao against Dragon Spring Sex White Horse, Shao wins! Right when Shao released another attack, Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's pupils contracted, hurriedly taking action. A sphere of Emperor light wrapped around the White Horse, moreover shattering Shao's terrifying attack. At the same time, the result of the battle between the two was announced. Chapter 684. Bai Ma was sent out from the battlefield, coldly staring at Shao. Even though his eyes carried unwillingness, he didn't object to the result of this battle. This time, he was defeated extremely thoroughly. In a few years I will pay a visit to all Heaven's Commerce, exchange some pointers with you again. Bai Ma looked at Shao, his voice cold. If at that time I was still in the sect, I would naturally accept. However, no matter how many times we fight, the result won't change. In the same cultivation realm, all Heaven's Commerce's disciples are unmatched. Shao's words carried a smile. The battle ended, leaving the battlefield. Dragon Spring Sex Bai Ma was actually defeated. It was still a crushing defeat. It isn't even excessive to say that he was crushed. Among perfect level half-immortal emperors, Bai Ma is publicly acknowledged to be in the top 10. How could the result be like this? Is all heaven's commerces sure how already powerful to this degree? I fear that he is only half a foot away from the immortal emperor realm. In my opinion, he should be the strongest among all heaven's commerce's 11 perfect level half-immortal emperors. No! Look at the performance of the other all heaven's commerce's disciples. Looking at the empty area of the battlefield, the spectators discussed animatedly. Following this disharmonious voice, countless eyes scattered towards the other all heaven's commerce's disciples' battlefields. When they saw this, their expressions became more and more shocked, their mouths wide open, faces full of disbelief. On the other side of the battlefield. On this battlefield, all types of resplendent emperor methods continuously interweaved, releasing incomparable surging auras. They were like a sea, shaking the heavens until they resonated, trembling intensely, continuously collapsing. A series of sky-shocking noises sounded. Two figures interweaved, both of them releasing terrifying auras. Hong Long! On the battlefield, the two figures clashed fiercely, and then separated. An enormous pill-shaped object suddenly appeared, massive beyond compare, carrying the might of lightning. Not only this, behind that pill-shaped object, there was a great cauldron that appeared, its might shaking the heavens. One could only see stars comparable in size to star domains moving around that cauldron one after another, the cauldron surging with all life source energy. As for the cauldron opening, there were surging stellar streams, connected to resplendent lightning. Looking at the huge pill-shaped object again, it was surrounded by lightning from the 9 heavens. Black, purple, green, all kinds of lightning were present. There were even some lightning that had evolved into the appearance of ancient divine beasts. Just a glance at it would make one unable to help but kowtow and worship it. It's this pill-shaped object again! What is that thing? Could it really be the All Heavens Store's inheritance? No, I've interacted with the people of the All Heavens shop. They don't have such an item. If my guess is right, this should be a legacy unique to personal disciples. Different from the previous Shurhao, the Tao this Yi Fan walks is also different. The crowd of spectators stared at the thunder pill and started discussing. Buzz buzz, the cauldron floated in the air, the myriad source chi flowing. The lightning pill spun, driving the lightning of the 9 heavens. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, a figure appeared above the cauldron and the pill-shaped object. His hands were clasped behind his back, as if he had just experienced a bloody battle. His eyes were looking straight ahead. He had yet to become an immortal emperor, but he gave off the feeling that he was an immortal emperor. Awesome! Fight again! Right at this time, a shout full of fighting spirit sounded from the other side of the battlefield. The voice shook heaven and earth, intimidating one's soul. Within the resplendent radiance, another figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. They saw that there were 2 horns on his head, black cloud patterns between his brows. Blood pressure covered the stars in the heavens shining and resonating. As his shout sounded, they only saw him reach out his right hand, covering tens of thousands of stars. The stellar river behind him moved, and with a Hong sound, it slapped towards Yi Fan. Hey Wushan Yuquan, number 1 at the consummate level of the half-immortal emperor level. This Yi Fan's strength isn't inferior to Shurhao's in the slightest. It is rumored that Yuquan had attacked at the immortal emperor realm tens of millions of years ago. Back then, if not for him being affected by the outside world, some unexpected things happening, he might have succeeded. This person can actually fight against Yuquan to this extent, truly terrifying. While looking at Yuquan who took action, all of the spectating cultivators took a deep breath, their faces full of shock. Yi Fan calmly looked at Yuquan. His body shone, becoming resplendent and dazzling. In that instant, that enormous pill-shaped object entered his body. His head of black hair was almost dyed blue. He walked on the all-life source cauldron, his entire body's aura erupting. Hong Long Long! On the battlefield, Yi Fan walked on the cauldron, all life source energy swirling about his body. When he brandished his fist, 9 colored lightning wrapped around it. One could vaguely see pill-shaped irregular scenes. His divine might was matchless, eternally unmatched. A fist smashed out, directly facing Yuquan's giant palm. Pun! Primal chaos surged, Emperor Dao flower blossoming. Under countless eyes, Yi Fan's 9-colored lightning fist collided with Yuquan's terrifying palm. This time, it was no longer a state of equilibrium. Yuquan clearly took a step back. However, he didn't seem to mind, releasing an unmatched Emperor technique again. The two figures interweaved again. Emperor Dao laws danced about, their attacks becoming simple, containing the highest great Dao. Yi Fan stepped on the cauldron, the thunder core irregular scenes appearing behind him. Continuous attacks were launched, like a torrential river. Yuquan also used various Emperor techniques to resist. His divine powers were boundless, and law runes split the sky, forcefully clashing with the might of lightning and the cauldron made of all life source chi. The battle between the two was unimaginable, and it broke the river of time, constantly changing its course. Is it really a battle between complete earthly sovereigns? In the Star Ocean Square, countless experts muttered to themselves. Our senior brothers are so strong! Yeah, I feel like they're even stronger than Daddy. Bing Tong Tong, Buxian, and little Long Huang looked at the projection of the battle in the sky in shock. Their eyes were wide open as they locked onto the majestic figure walking on the cauldron in the battlefield. Just a casual punch from him could unleash the 9 heavens forbidden lightning with Emperor aura. Believe in yourself! Work hard, work hard! One day, we'll be like senior brothers, proud of the All-Heaven Shop and make the All-Heaven Shop proud of us. Buxian clenched his fists, his eyes filled with determination. As time passed, the battle on the battlefield became more and more intense, entering a white-hot state. The two figures unleashed the most terrifying laws in the world, punching and kicking. Flowing light surged, and time surged. They were so powerful that they could destroy everything with a wave of their hands. Gradually, they became entangled, as if they had merged into one person, and they fought fiercely. Boom! Finally, the majestic figure held the cauldron in one hand and the thunder core in the other. He combined the two and smashed them fiercely on Yuquan's body, bringing about a violent explosion. Amidst the mighty trembling sound, Yuquan coughed up blood and was sent flying. Yuquan is injured! Seeing this scene on the battlefield, all the spectating experts trembled, and they seemed to be in a daze. Chapter 685. Do you still want to continue? Yi Fan's emotionless voice echoed throughout the battlefield. The cauldron beneath his feet swallowed and spat out the source energy of all living things. Many stars floated up and down there. How grand was this? Boundless might was matchless. The pill-shaped object behind him surged with thunder and lightning. It flickered with all kinds of mysterious thunder and lightning that carried the aura of Emperor Dao. There were even humanoid thunder and lightning. I haven't lost yet. Of course. I don't understand the situation. Before Yuquan could finish his sentence, Yi Fan stepped on the cauldron and moved towards Yuquan. Everything seemed to be moving in reverse. It was terrifying. At this moment, he truly looked like an immortal emperor who had descended into the world of mortals. His long hair was disheveled, and his divine might was matchless. The great cauldron covered the sun and moon as it soared into the sky. The pill-shaped object spun frantically, releasing the might of lightning. Fight! Yuquan ignited his origin blood essence, which was countless times more resplendent than all the stars and moons in the sky gathered together. He gathered the power of the Milky Way and charged towards Yi Fan with supreme laws. His aura rose to the peak. Lin Bing Do Zhe Jie number group forward move! Thunder from the 9th heaven! Ding Zhen! At this moment, Yi Fan, who was standing on the cauldron, spoke again. Even though they were separated by the space-time barrier, the experts on the Star Ocean Square were still shocked by the might of Yi Fan's shout. All of them felt as if they were facing an abyss and trembled inexplicably. These 3 sentences shook the heavens and the earth. It was as if the celestial emperor had descended. He was incomparably dignified as he passed down a decree that was extremely grand. The 9 runes transformed into 9 balls of light and merged into the thunder pellet. Then, it carried the immortal intimidating thunder and entered the myriad chi cauldron. In the end, the great cauldron erupted with immeasurable power. It produced a supreme secret technique that instantly pierced through all obstructions and suppressed towards Yuquan. Bang! Yuquan's body exploded into a mass of flesh and blood. Yuquan, stop struggling. You are not his match. Just as Yifan's attack was about to penetrate the lump of flesh, another figure appeared on the battlefield. Immortal Emperor He Wu waved his hand and repelled Yifan's attack. You're not bad. Perhaps after 1,000,000,000 years, even I will no longer be your match. Immortal Emperor He Wu glanced at Yifan before glancing in Chu Bei's direction and said, Great teachers produce great students. With that, Immortal Emperor He Wu left the battlefield with the heavily injured Yuquan. All Heaven Shops Yifan vs. He Wushan Yuquan. Yifan wins! Subsequently, Immortal Emperor Lan Hui announced the results. His majestic voice filled every corner of the high heavens. Yuquan really lost. Could it be that the All Heavens Shop's disciples are truly invincible in the same realm? Is that lineage's pill-shaped inheritance really so terrifying? Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's voice rang in their ears. The group of experts looked at each other, unable to recover from the shock for a moment. Gradually, the results of the matches on the other battlefields also came out. All 11 peak stage half-immortal emperors from the All Heavens Shop defeated their opponents and advanced to the next round. In the second round, from the top 64 to the top 32, the All Heavens Shop's 11 great perfection stage cultivators all advanced. In the third round, from the top 32 to the top 16, the primordial dragon Phoenix failed to advance, while the other 10 advanced. When the third round of the competition ended, there were only 16 contestants left in the huge arena. Looking at the 16 great perfection stage cultivators on the stage, not only the experts on the plaza, but even the immortal emperors could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. Out of the 16, 10 of them came from the same faction, and this faction was none other than the All Heavens Shop. Heavens! Even if all 10 of them surrender without a fight, their total points would only be less than the 2 celestial emperors from the Genesis Immortal sect. The total points of the faction rankings are not only calculated by the disciples, but also by the faction's founder. With the strength of the All Heavens Shop sect master, the difference in points between the disciples of the All Heavens Shop can be easily made up. In other words, the All Heavens Shop is firmly in the top 4 of the Emperor rankings this year. If the founders of the Dragon Spring sect, Divine Path Mountain, and Thousand Green Island don't come out of seclusion, it means the All Heavens Shop will take first place. This is unbelievable. Who would have thought the All Heavens Shop would become the number 1 faction before the start of the ranking battle? The square was filled with astonished discussions and clamoring noises. Everyone, the ranking battle has already reached its end. The 4th battle is the battle between the top 16 and the top 8. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui stood at the front of the stage and swept his gaze across the crowd with a smile. Battlefield 1, Thousand Green Islands Gu Mo vs. All Heavens Shop's Yifan. Battlefield 2, Divine Path Mountains Tian Ru vs. All Heavens Shop's Chinnan. Battlefield 3, Floating Island Sex Wan Bei vs. All Heavens Shop's Shihao. Battlefield 4, Genesis Immortal Sex Hong Jun vs. All Heavens Shop's Xiaoyan. Battlefield 5, Genesis Immortal Sex Hun Kun vs. All Heavens Shop's Sun Wukong. Battlefield 6, Dragon Spring Sex Corpse C vs. All Heavens Shop's Zhu Beiji. Battlefield 7, All Heavens Shop's Tang San vs. All Heavens Shop's Jin Chanzi. Battlefield 8, All Heavens Shop's Sha Sing vs. All Heavens Shop's Ao Lai. After a fair selection, Immortal Emperor Lan Hui walked to the edge of the stage and announced the opponents of the 16 experts. The most anticipated moment is finally here. Truly interesting. Too many All Heavens Shop's disciples have been selected, so much so that internal strife has arisen. The next highlight is still Hong Jun and Han Kun's battle. The ones fighting against them are All Heaven's Shops Xiao Yan and Sun Wukong. In the previous battles, Xiao Yan and Sun Wukong's performances were also very strong. They defeated their opponents at the peak without suffering any injuries. Unfortunately, they were unlucky to encounter Hong Jun and Han Kun. In the end, they still stopped at the top 16. In that case, in the best-case scenario, 6 of the top 8 will be All Heaven's Shops disciples. If I'm not wrong, All Heaven's Shops Sun Wukong and Han Kun are from the same place. I wonder if Han Kun will show mercy during the battle. Just as Immortal Emperor Lan Hui finished announcing the opponents of the 16 powerhouses, the square burst into an uproar as discussions broke out. Among them, the most discussed topic was the upcoming battle between Hong Jun, Han Kun, and Xiao Yan and Sun Wukong. Since the preparations are complete, let's enter the battlefield. As soon as Immortal Emperor Lan Hui's calm voice fell, 16 divine rainbows landed on the 8 battlefields. The first, second, third, and sixth battlefields were the fastest to enter the battlefield. As for the other 4 battlefields, the 8 experts looked at each other and did not make a move as soon as they entered the stage. Battlefield 7. Brother Tang, although I really want to understand your Tao, are you in a hurry? Golden Cicada cupped his fist at Tang San and said with a smile. I also want to experience the power of Buddha. However, I'm not in a hurry now. Tang San replied with a smile. Then let's take a look at the other battlefields first. Golden Cicada asked again. That's what I thought. Tang San laughed. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.